Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was engaged to Ino Sasuke bashing. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by pudgypudge, link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. 3 years. It had been 3 years since that awful, horrible day when both of their worlds were shattered. He had lost a wife and the boy had lost a mother. There was no bloodshed, there was no death, and there was no yelling or profanity, although he wishes at times there had been. She had came into the living room where he and the little 4-year-old boy were and had said that she was going. When asked when she would be back, she simply replied never. Heartbroken, the little boy had asked if he could come with her and she had looked him dead in the eye and said no. It was not just a simple no, but a no that dropped a nuclear warhead on the feelings of him and the boy. The poor little thing had run back to his father and wrapped his arms around his neck, crying like there was no tomorrow. Looking at her with pleading eyes, he broke down in tears himself when she turned her nose up at him and walked out the door. Turning back to the sobbing bundle in his arms, he began to comfort the boy and rocked him to sleep. The loss of his wife wouldn't have been so devastating if not for certain circumstances he would find out in the morning. After waking up and shoving breakfast into himself and the boy, he was getting him dressed when a messenger bird pecked at the window. Quickly reading the message, he picked the boy up and they trekked to the Hokage's office to see what might have been the problem. Tsunade, upon seeing the little boy she considered her grandchild, scooped him up and gave him a kiss. He didn't giggle like normal though, just hung there in space. She noticed his father had the same hangdog look as well. Furrowing her brow, she decided to get to the bottom of this. Naruto, what's the matter? Why do you and little Hikaru look so sad? Did something happen? Yeah, something happened, alright. Sakura came home last night and said she was leaving us. For good. She didn't even have the slightest look of remorse for leaving Hikaru. If it was me, I could understand, all I've ever wanted was her happiness. But to do that to her son. I don't know what to think. Anyway, I'm sorry Bachan, I'm rambling. What did you have to tell me? Tsunade was dumbstruck. The poor little boy in her arms had began sobbing against her chest at the mere mention of his mother and she looked down in sadness at him. He looked just like his father in every detail down to the whisker marks, except for the streaks of pink at the ends of his golden hair and his silver eyes. God, this kid's gonna be quite the looker when he grows up. Hope I'm around to see great-grandchildren. She thought to herself. Turning her gaze back to Naruto, she sighed heavily and walked back to her plush office chair, motioning him to sit as well. Naruto, I'm not going to lie, that is very sad. The fact that it was my apprentice and your childhood sweetheart who did it makes it very hard to accept. Since this is a domestic issue, all I can do is notarize the divorce papers, but I want you to know that I will make her life a living hell on the professional level. To abandon her child is unforgivable. To abandon you, when you've given her everything, should be a crime punishable by death. As for what I called you here for, I think it may explain why she left you. At this, Naruto's head snapped up and tears came to his eyes. All he could think was no, she wouldn't leave us for him. Not him. Please, Kami, no, not him. Seeing the tears falling, Tsunade hung her head and whispered that it was indeed him. Sasuke had come home. He was her apprentice's one true weakness, the one thing that could make her give up a loving husband and beautiful child for a small chance with a traitorous Uchiha. That was all that needed to be said as Naruto gathered Hikaru from her arms and giving her a small peck on the cheek as thanks, exited her office. He never was the same after that. That was 3 years ago. Presently, Shikamaru was talking to Ino about everyone's favorite blonde. No, not Ino herself, they were discussing Naruto's appearances in the village, or the lack thereof. Look Ino, all I'm saying is that we need to get him out of that house. For Kami's sake, all he does is do missions anymore. He doesn't come out on Saturday nights anymore, he doesn't socialize, he doesn't do anything for himself anymore. Everything he does revolves around his son and that isn't healthy. The only time we ever see him outside anymore is when he takes the boy to the park or out to eat. And while he's happy to see us, it's like he's forgotten how to talk to us. Ino swept the hair out of her face and scrunched her nose. She wasn't sure where Shikamaru was going with all this. It was true that they all missed the blonde whirlwind, but he had responsibilities now that none of the rest of them had, and she voiced her opinion on that. Really Shika, I don't see what the big deal is. Sure, we all miss him, but he was dealt a really devastating blow, you know. He's taking care of his son and he's trying hard. It's not like he disappeared completely. Sure, I wish he would get out and do more with someone, try to move on, but he can't or he won't. He was completely devoted to Sakura and I just don't see him moving on. Besides that, why are we having this conversation? If you want to try to get him outside, then why don't you just ask him? Why involve me? Because you're the only one of his friends that isn't involved with anyone. Come on Ino, I know you like the guy. You damn near started drooling when you saw him after his training trip with Uraya, and I know you like him now. And don't even try to deny it. Despite your denying your feelings, you were one of the most disgusted with Sakura when she took back up with Sasuke. The two of you mended though, and your friendship continued, and eventually Sasuke and Sakura were let back into the fold. Naruto hasn't come back in yet, and damn it. I miss him and his smile. As for you, you haven't smiled as much since he went and became a recluse either. I want my friends happy, and if I have to force you to go to his house with my shadow possession jutsu, I'll do it. Now go ask him out. But Shika. No buts, go. That was the end of that argument. Shikamaru could be forceful when he wanted to be. Ino currently found herself outside of Naruto's estate. After finding out that he was the son of the fourth, all of his father's assets became his, including the family estate. The house was huge and more than accommodated Naruto and Hikaru. Ino smiled as she thought of Naruto as a father. He had always seemed like such an idiot, and the thought that he was a warm and loving father made her smile. It was late already, close to 10 o'clock, and she didn't want to be a burden, but Shikamaru had left little to no bargaining room for her. It was now or never. She was about to knock on the door when she noticed a light coming from one of the windows. Curiosity getting the better of her, she crept to the window and peeked inside. There sat Naruto on his couch as he watched Hikaru playing with a two-tailed fox. She took in his looks from her hidden position and sighed. He really was handsome. Erratic blonde hair, whisker marks, deep blue eyes, sweet body, sexy voice, he was a complete package. The fact that he was a loyal and caring person was a bonus to all that. She looked with fondness at the small smile he sported while his son wrestled with the fox and settled down to watch what happened. She couldn't honestly say she wasn't curious about Naruto and his home life. He had become such a recluse in recent years. Not that she could blame him. His ex-wife was always around town flaunting the fact that she was now the wife of the last Uchiha, and the two children she had with him didn't help. Ino scowled at the thought. Did Sakura jump the guy as soon as he got in the gate and start making babies, or did she have the decency to wait until the divorce was final? She shook her head and got rid of those thoughts when she heard Hikaru speak up. Daddy, do you think mommy will ever come back home? I miss her. Oh Naruto. That's a question you shouldn't have to answer. No one deserves what you've got in life. Ino winced at the question and thought that like any normal person Naruto would skate around it. There's a reason why he's known as the #1 surprising ninja of Konoha though. Sighing, Naruto gave one of the most straightforward answers he could possibly give to a little 7-year-old. Son, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think mommy's ever coming back. It's just you and me from here on out. I thought back in the beginning she would see the error of her ways, but it appears that Uchiha Sasuke is too great a prize to give up. I'm really sorry buddy, but it's you and me against the world. This nearly broke Ino's heart. No one should have to suffer like these two were. Naruto had suffered his whole life, and it just wasn't fair that fate was bitch slapping him left and right. His son was innocent as well. Didn't the boy deserve a mother? What caught her attention next was a totally new voice. Lord Naruto, I believe it is time for young Master Hikaru's bedtime. He will need his strength for his training in the morning. I do not want him passing out from lack of sleep. That had come from the fox. Ino took another gander at the little thing. The timbre of the voice was such a deep bass that it was almost surreal. It sent shivers up her spine. And why did it address Naruto as Lord? That was weird. Wait, why the hell was a fox talking in the first place? Her thoughts were interrupted when Naruto laughed. This made Ino happy since she was probably the first to hear him laugh in a long time. Suddenly Naruto and the fox stared at each other and began to converse in a squeaky guttural yipping language that she couldn't decipher. She tensed thinking she had been found out, but they both relaxed and turned their attention to a now yawning Hikaru. The little boy was so cute with his hair and whisker marks. A future lady killer. Thought Ino. Her process of thinking was shattered however when she was almost discovered. Naruto had crossed the room and threw the window open, nearly brushing her arm when he leaned out to sniff the night air. She held her breath and tried not to make a sound. Finally he turned and scooped Hikaru into his arms and the fox followed them to the boy's bedroom. Ino heard them talking and just when everything was quiet the boy exploded. Daddy, sing me a song. I want a bedtime song. The fox, which was curled at the end of the bed, growled at the little boy and had his tail pulled for his efforts. It yelped and glared at the boy, who glared back. Don't growl at me Jinmaki. I want a song. You know Daddy always sings the best songs at bedtime. Naruto laughed at the two and told them to settle down, he'd be right back. He walked back to the den where they had been and Ino heard him shuffling around. She heard a snapping sound and a creak and then whatever he opened snapped shut again. She was about to lean back and peer through the window again when Naruto stuck his face out not 2 inches from hers. She squeaked and nearly rolled off the roof, but he caught her arm and snickered. Ino, you don't have to hide in the shadows. I assume you're here for something so don't wait outside in the cold. come on in and sit down. I'm just going to sing Hikaru to sleep and then we can talk about whatever you need to. How did you know I was out there? And how long did you let me sit out there in the cold when I could have been in here in the warmth? He couldn't help smiling at this. Same old Ino. It made him miss his friends and their antics. He gave her a foxy grin and pointed to the couch. Wait here. I'll be right back and then you can verbally castrate me, but my son needs his sleep. So keep it under 20 decibels, okay? He disappeared down the hall and it was only when he turned that Ino noticed the guitar in his hands. She cocked her head to the side and wondered when Naruto had taken up music. She shrugged and thought it wasn't like he had anything else to do. He couldn't be that good though, and she couldn't remember him having all that great a singing voice either. She shuffled down the hallway and pressed her ear against the door. Okay son. Only one song tonight. Daddy had a friend come over and we have to discuss something. Now anything in particular? Or just something random? The little boy yawned and snuggled into his pillow. The lump of fur at the end of the bed rose and flopped down behind him, pushing itself against his back. Naruto smiled and strummed the guitar. Alright then son. Shadow of the day it is. I close both locks below the window. I close both blinds and turn away. Sometimes solutions aren't so simple. Sometimes goodbye's the only way. And the sun will set for you. The sun will set for you. And the shadow of the day will embrace the world in gray. And the sun will set for you. And cards and flowers on your window. Your friends all plead for you to stay. Sometimes beginnings aren't so simple. Sometimes goodbye's the only way. And the sun will set for you. The sun will set for you. And the shadow of the day will embrace the world in gray. And the sun will set for you. And the shadow of the day will embrace the world in gray. And the sun will set for you. And the shadow of the day will embrace the world in gray. And the sun will set for you. Naruto strummed the guitar a final time and smiled down at his now sleeping son and his furry guardian. He patted the fox's head and kissed his son on the forehead and walked out of the room. Ino had heard him strum the guitar one last time through the door. She was entranced. She had heard what was quite possibly the most beautiful voice in the world and the guitar playing wasn't half bad either. The song was very soft and almost mournful and she was so caught up she almost forgot to return to the living room before she was caught eavesdropping. She innocently sat on the couch and pretended to take in her surroundings when Naruto walked back in and sat the guitar down again. He flopped down on the chair across from her and gave her a weary smile. So Ino, what brings you to my humble abode at this time of the night? I take it this isn't a social call. Ino shook her head when she heard something buzzing in her ears and realized that Naruto was talking to her. She was still caught up in the music and wasn't paying attention to him in the slightest. Her only thoughts were how she could hear that heavenly voice accompanied with that guitar again. But for now she was on a friendly mission. Actually it is a social call. We, and by we I mean everyone, wants you to come out with us Saturday. We miss you. Just come hang out for a few hours. Please. Naruto scowled at the request. He didn't want to be anywhere near society on Saturdays because he knew that all his friends gathered at whatever local venue they could to catch up. But that would mean seeing Sakura and Sasuke again and he didn't want that now or ever. He couldn't face them, it hurt too much. He turned soulful eyes to Ino and shook his head. I can't do that Ino and you know why. I can't face those two. They destroyed my dreams and hurt poor Hikaru. I just can't. I miss you all very much but I won't go. I have nothing to go for. This did not settle well with Ino. She was too used to getting her way with Shikamaru and Choji and she'd be damned if Naruto was going to throw off her perfect record. Naruto, you're going and that's final. We want you to come back out and have fun. For Kami's sake Naruto, all you do anymore is missions and watch your son play. You need more from life. You need a life. We all miss you. Yeah right. If you all miss me then why is it just you here? None of you really miss me you just miss the idiot who made you all laugh. I've grown up Ino. I've had to grow up fast and I have responsibilities the rest of you don't. Naruto, please, don't say things like that. We want you to have fun, we miss you. None of you really miss me. I miss you. Ino clapped her hand over her mouth after she shouted that to the heavens. Partly in fear of having woken Hikaru and partly in realization of what she said. She had been saying we the whole time and had finally just let it go. She missed him. She missed his smile. It had been damn near 3 years since anyone had seen it and she missed it more than most. She was all by herself and that smile was always a constant in her life. Whenever she had a bad breakup, there was Naruto with that smile and a quick hug, saying everything would be alright. Whenever life was getting to her, there he was with that radiant smile. She looked over to see his reaction and saw his face pointed toward the floor, staring at his feet. Oh, do you really mean that Ino? She could hear the desperation in his voice. He wanted so badly to know that he was missed, that he wasn't an outcast. Of course I meant it. I miss you, Naruto. Of all the guys in my life, you were always there for me. Hell, I'll even admit that when you came back I thought you were extremely hot. I miss your smile, Naruto. The world has been much dimmer without the sunshine of Konoha in it. Please come with us Saturday." He looked up at her and she could see the dam starting to break. 3 years of seclusion had done him no good. And at his most vulnerable, Ino saw him for who he was. A person who had bottled up everything and shoved it aside, threw aside his feelings for the sake of his son. To ensure that no matter what shitpile life shoved at his son he would take the blow. He had removed himself from society so that he wouldn't have to face his ex-wife and ex-best friend, and it broke her heart. She immediately got up and dragged him back to the couch and hugged him while he cried and let it all out. "You don't know how much it hurts, Ino. He's taken everything from me. He took Sakura, he took my little boy's mother. He took my self-respect again and again. He's looked down on me forever. My brother. But worst of all, he took my dream, Ino. He took the only thing to keep me going over the years. I just don't think I can face the two of them with my head held high after I've been down in the dirt for so long." Ino just held him and her anger at her two friends washed over her again. It was all true. Those two had destroyed Naruto's ambitions and dreams. Sakura destroyed his family when she left and Sasuke was basically given the title Hokage even though he was a traitor. The council simply wouldn't let the demon have it. Tsunade fought tooth and nail, but it just didn't matter. Sasuke was the next Hokage, despite the uproar from the majority of the town and ninja who had come to see Naruto as the only logical choice. The man had made strides his whole life to erase any doubt that he was Naruto, a hero, and not a demon. But logic doesn't work in politics and he was cast out. Ino came out of her thoughts just as he stopped sobbing and hiccuping on her shoulder. She looked up and her eyes were caught in that soul-searing gaze of his. The only thoughts running through her head at that moment were beautiful and I would never have done that to him. She felt him slide away from her embrace and he sat upright again, his resolve back and his posture from the past finally returning. He turned and gave her a smile that nearly made her melt in her shoes. "Alright, Ino. I'll go Saturday with you. But only if you accompany me yourself. I don't want to go alone." Her eyes widened and her brain nearly short-circuited. Here was Konoha's most eligible bachelor telling her he would go out, but only if it was with her. The gods of fate would get many sacrifices in their honor later. With just a little bit of hope in her voice she managed to squeak out a reply. "Naruto, are you asking me out on a date Saturday?" "Yes, Ino, I am. I think that after 3 years, I need to get back out into society and there is only one person I can think of right now worthy of me returning to society with. And she's sitting right here. So how about it? Call it a date." Ino did something then that she hadn't done since Naruto's self-imposed exile. She smiled. Not a fake smile, but a genuine, happy smile that warmed the room. In less than a second, mopey Ino was gone and the old, self-assured Ino was back, the smile widening into one of her Cheshire cat grins, and Naruto knew he was screwed. "Oh Naruto, of course I'll go with you. But you have to do me one favor in return. For the most beautiful kunoichi in the Konoha, anything." That pulled the old heartstrings. Ino hadn't been called beautiful in years. She simply hadn't attempted to be. She was still a knockout, but hearing the hottest guy in Konoha say that was enough to flush her cheeks immediately. "Thank you, Naruto. That means a lot to me. My only request is that you play your guitar for me. I want to hear you sing again. I was listening while you were playing to Hikaru. It was angelic. I loved it. Play for me, please." Naruto chuckled and reached for his guitar. If this was all it took to win over a lady he had it made. Not to mention that the girl he was going out with Saturday was the most eligible bachelorette in Konoha. The guys and gals of Konoha all have an unofficial bingo book of who is the hottest and most eligible singles in the village, and Naruto and Ino had topped that list for several years now. He strummed the guitar and gave Ino another smile. "Well then, beautiful, do you have any requests?" "Just sing, Whisker Boy. We'll iron out the details of our date later." "Yes, Milady." Chapter 2. Ino had flown home after that night at Naruto's. She was like a totally different person and everyone saw it, but no one asked any questions. It was so rare to see her in a good mood lately that no one wanted to spoil it. She was smiling so much that it was hurting everyone else's faces. Shikamaru had given her 2 days before he decided to check on what the deal was. He had asked her to check on Naruto on Wednesday, and it was now Friday. Her mission was to get him out Saturday, and he wanted to know if the mission was accomplished. Walking into the flower shop he was greeted with a blinding flash of teeth and a loud screech. "Shika. Just the person I wanted to see." He winced and realized he should have made a run for it. Sigh. "Hello, Ino. How did your mission go? It wasn't too troublesome, I take it." "That's for me to know and you to find out." Shikamaru cocked his eyebrow at this and scowled. "So you didn't get him to come, huh?" "For your information, I did talk to him and he said maybe. You'll see Saturday night whether he comes or not." If he does, where are we going? Everyone has decided to meet up at the karaoke bar. You know, the one for shinobi and civilians. So troublesome. I don't like the atmosphere there, but it is nicer than the one exclusively for shinobi. That's true. Well, I gotta get back to work, Shika. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Receiving a grunt for an answer, she turned and began making plans for tomorrow. Wait a minute. Didn't he say the karaoke bar? Ino grinned evilly and thought perfect, she could get Naruto to sing there and everyone would realize how great he was and that she was on the arm of the hottest guy in town. Maybe she could even get him to sing a love song to her. Whoa, slow down, girl. One step at a time. She turned back to the bouquet she was working on and began humming happily. Saturday flew by quickly and Ino found herself in a frenzy over what to wear. She hadn't been this excited about a date in years. She was glad that Naruto had grown out of his orange jumpsuit phase and had in recent years actually become something of a fashion plate. That would go nicely with her, as she always liked to look her best. She finally decided on a little black dress, every girl's secret weapon, and a pair of black heels. She wore her hair in her usual ponytail down her back since she knew that Naruto liked his women natural if at all possible. He didn't like fakes or phonies. Since her beauty was natural anyway, she forsook makeup and just put on some lipstick. A couple of hoop earrings and some gold bracelets and voila. A complete knockout for the evening. She only hoped that he had put forth an effort as well. Her thoughts were interrupted when she heard a knock at the door. Rushing to the door, she nearly tripped over her shoes. Calm down, Ino. It's only Naruto. He cleans up well, but you've got him beat in the looks department tonight. Oh, how wrong she was. She opened the door and there in front of her was an Adonis. Ino had forgotten how tall he had gotten. Even with her heels she wouldn't reach the bottom of his chin. He was a giant. She looked up into his eyes and saw that he had on his foxiest grin. Good evening, Ino. She didn't even hear him. She was too busy drinking up the rest of him with her eyes. He was wearing a white button-down shirt with golden stitching that ran like flames up to his chest, and his blue jeans had a yellow fox with 9 tails crawling up one leg. Custom-made stuff, very nice. She traveled down to his shoes and saw that they were leather boots of a reddish tint. She unknowingly licked her lips and continued to travel over his figure to his studded belt and saw that he had his white battle coat on his arm. That was his signature, his father's coat. Suddenly a thought came to her head, her date was hot. And he was all hers for the evening. Sasuke be damned, Sakura had let a fine fish back into the sea and Ino had caught him. She was brought out of visually eating him up when she heard a chuckle and looked up to see Naruto scratching the back of his head while looking away. Ino, if you don't mind, could you stop undressing me with your eyes? At least not until after dinner. I've just arrived back on the dating scene and I'd rather not be eyed like a piece of meat even if you are beautiful and I'm your date. He gave her another foxy grin and she blushed. Wait, blushed. Yamanaka Ino did not blush for guys. But here she was doing it for Naruto. He had completely caught her in the act and she didn't really care. A smirk crept across her face and she gave him a look that meant he was going to be teased mercilessly throughout the evening. When she batted her eyelashes at him, he gulped. Well, if you don't want someone admiring the goods, you shouldn't dress that way, hot stuff. I can't help looking at you if you look like a Greek god. You look good enough to eat. Unfortunately, I'm not a cannibal and I'd really prefer cooked meat tonight, so where are we going? Well, madam, you are the initiator of this little event, so I believe you should pick. My treat, of course. Wherever you want. Fine. I want to go to the most expensive place in Konoha and I want you to talk to me the entire time. Then we're going to a club. Is that okay? She was expecting a fight, at least a small struggle. After all, this was Naruto and he didn't do fancy. She quirked her eyebrow when he shrugged and gave her a small smile. Whatever Milady wants, Milady gets. Boy, that floored her. If he kept calling her madam and Milady, she was going to melt in front of him. She hadn't been treated so well on a date in years and they hadn't even left her house yet. Yep, this is gonna be a good evening. She thought. They soon arrived at the restaurant and Ino was definitely pleased. Not only had his manners improved over the years, but they were turning heads and she could see people pointing and whispering. They were quite the pair with her flowing blonde locks and his unkempt but still in place golden hair. She had looked at that mop of his and wondered how it felt but stomped out those thoughts until she got to know him better. They were almost there when he had suddenly started chuckling and she asked him what the problem was. He looked at her with a sparkle in his eyes. See that old lady over there across the street? She said that we made the cutest couple she had seen in a long time. I also heard her mutter to herself whether or not the kids would turn out natural blonde or if we were both dyeing our hair. How did you hear her say that? She's at least a good 50 feet away, Naruto. Enhanced senses, Ino. I don't have a fox demon in me for nothing. The whiskers are just one of the many things I gained by having him in me. I can also smell the lilac perfume on you and I know that you had oatmeal for breakfast. She scrunched her nose at this. Her perfume was easily identifiable and the oatmeal was probably a lucky guess. And you think I believe all that? My perfume may be lilac, but the part about oatmeal was a lucky guess. But Ino, I haven't been close enough to smell your perfume. You only put on a drop or two at the most behind your ears. And as for your oatmeal, you had cinnamon apple. Well, that shut her up. If he could smell that and hear that far away, it was no wonder he had known she was outside the window that night. Turning her thoughts from then to now, she placed her drink order and bridged her hands under her chin. She sighed and thought it was best to get any secrets between them out of the way. So Naruto. Where did the fox come from and how did it speak? Was that a genjutsu you put me under? No. Jinmaki is one of my summons. He's completely loyal to me and I've sacrificed some of my chakra to keep him here in this world permanently as a guard for my son. The two are very fond of each other besides, even if they do fight like siblings. Okay. But how does he speak? He's a summon. All summons speak the human language. The fox summons are just more adept than most because they are the most intelligent. Well, that made as much sense as anything. But something was still remiss. Why did it call you Lord? I've never heard the toads call you that. Naruto had to think quickly. He didn't have an answer prepared for that. Since I'm the first human to ever summon foxes, they kind of revere me. I'm something of a celebrity in the summons world. It makes me uncomfortable, but they refuse to call me anything but Lord. Ino was satisfied for the moment, but his quick-eyed darts around the room told her that she wasn't getting the whole story. No matter, she'd find out later. After all, as good as the evening was going, she wanted more than one of these dates and damned if she didn't usually get what she wanted. Naruto, tell me about Hikaru. She noticed that he just stared at her for a moment and then he broke out into an ear-splitting grin. She was startled at first, but when he launched into his fatherly diatribe about how great his son was, she just rested her head into her cupped hands and listened with a small smile on her face. He was immensely proud of his son and would tell anyone that would listen. She sighed and thought that he was a great father. Perhaps he could be a great father to her children someday. Suddenly she realized what she had thought and nearly choked as she sipped on her drink. Naruto came around behind her and clapped her on the back, ending her discomfort. With a concerned look he asked if she was alright and she nodded her head looking for a way out of this. She saw her chance. The food's here. They ate in relative silence and nothing more was said in their time in the restaurant. Naruto paid the bill and when Ino saw the zeros on the piece of paper she nearly fainted, but he paid it like he was flipping a quarter to someone. He must be loaded. Ino thought. They stepped outside the restaurant and noticed that the air was decidedly cooler. Ino rubbed her arms and thought that maybe the little black dress wasn't a good way to go when she felt a weight on her shoulders and turned to see Naruto putting his battle coat on her. Such a gentleman. Has he always been so kind? He smiled at her and stood there with his hands on his hips. So, Milady, where to now? About a half hour later, the two were outside of the karaoke bar and Naruto was feeling like he was being set up. He was suddenly very hot and uncertain as to whether he should go in, but Ino grabbed his arm and pulled him along behind her. She growled at his hesitancy and gave him a sharp look. Damned it, Naruto, this has been a wonderful evening so far and I'm not gonna let your insecurities over whether your friends still like you or not spoil that. We all want you here, so come on. Gulp. Yes, ma'am. He had to let his eyes adjust to the dark atmosphere at first and then noticed all his friends sitting at a table in the back. Everyone was there. As soon as Lee saw him he smiled and flashed his teeth, blinding everyone, and rushed across the room. Naruto, my youthful friend. Tonight is a glorious night for you to spend with us. Let us all show you the youthful gatherings you have missed in the past years. Damn it, Lee. I wasn't finished singing yet. You asshole. Naruto turned and saw Kiba on the stage with a microphone in his hand. He also was grinning from ear to ear and waved at Naruto, who returned the gesture. The next few minutes were a whirlwind of reintroductions and handshaking and hugs from the girls. It was only after about 15 minutes that Naruto leaned over to Ino, who was still wearing his coat and sniffing it discreetly every few moments since it smelled like him, and asked where they were. I don't know. They're usually here by now. Maybe they won't come tonight. But away from that, will you sing for me tonight? Please. He looked over at her and saw nothing but big puppy dog eyes. Damn, she's just too cute. He sighed and rubbed his temples. Of course, Ino. If that's what you want, I'll sing a song. But it will be one that I want to sing. And we'll leave immediately after. I don't want any fangirls trying to chat me up. Agreed. She shook her head vigorously. This was the perfect evening. Not much could ruin it, and if she had her way nothing would. It seems that all of his friends decided to sing. Most were horrible, but it wasn't about the atrocity of their voices, it was about the fun and camaraderie. Kiba had finally finished his song, and Lee followed after. Everyone had his or her turn. Hinata sang a very beautiful traditional Japanese song, and even Niji sang, except he was almost smashed and no one could understand his slurring. The evening almost stopped when Sakura and Sasuke walked in the door and everyone hushed for a moment but were spurred on by Naruto speaking in a small voice. "Don't stop on my account. I'll be fine, just act like normal." He gave Ino's hand a squeeze while he said this, as if he was looking for reassurance. She squeezed back and she could see him visibly relax. As long as he had one person in his corner he'd be fine. Sakura and Sasuke took their place at the head of the table and the talking continued. Sakura eventually took her turn and sang an old folksy song and Sasuke declined his turn with a familiar HN. Suddenly Lee jumped up onto his chair and pointed at Naruto. "Naruto. My youthful friend. You have not sang a song yet and I would be remiss in letting you go without showing us your burning flames of youth on stage." Sighing, Naruto stood up and looked at Ino. She had a smirk on her face, but her eyes betrayed her. She didn't want the night ruined because he did something he didn't want to do. He just smiled at her and made his way to the stage. All eyes were on him as he sat on the stool and turned to the DJ. "Thank you, but no music will be necessary. I shall provide the music and words myself." This caught everyone's attention. The stage was lit up and Naruto just sat on the stool with a far-off look in his eyes. Suddenly he snapped his fingers and a three-tailed fox the size of a large dog appeared on the stage in a puff of smoke. It looked up at him and yawned. "Yes, Lord Naruto. How can I be of service to you?" "I need you to go and fetch my guitar from the house and bring it back here. Oh, and bring the travel case with you, I'll just carry it home later. Then you may go back to your nap." "As you wish, my lord." The fox vanished in a puff of smoke and immediately questions began to rain down upon him. "Where'd the fox come from? I didn't see you make any hand signs, how'd you summon it? You play guitar?" "Okay, I'll answer those in order. Not telling, and yes, I play the guitar. In time I may tell you how I do the other things, but for now just know that I can." The puff of smoke beside him let him know that the fox was back and it had his guitar strapped to his back. It did not look happy. "Something wrong?" "Your son was gracious enough to strap the instrument to my back, but the little snot pulled my tails before I left. Please tell Master Hikaru that that is not an appropriate way to tell someone goodbye." "Of course I'll tell him. Sorry for disturbing you. You may go now." "Thank you, my lord. I shall see you again soon." The fox vanished and Naruto turned back to the crowd whose jaws had dropped. He tuned the instrument and strummed it a few times, never once looking at the crowd. He kept his head down and thought of what song to sing. Finally, he glanced at Sakura through his bangs and a devious smile crossed his face. Revenge is a dish best served cold and what he was about to sing was going to look very badly on her. He still didn't raise his gaze though. "This is a song I wrote a couple years back. Hope you all enjoy it. It's a little sad, but it's how I feel. Lately I've been spending lots of time with my kid telling him stories about the things that we did when we were a family long time ago. I've answered his questions till I'm blue in the fasuish, all that hurt in him could erase but I tell him the truth cause he ain't too young to know." Ino thought this could be trouble if Sakura gets out of hand. She quickly looked over to the pink-haired shinobi and saw her sitting there with a curious look on her face. She seemed to be very interested in how this was going to turn out. Suddenly the chorus broke out. "Single father part-time mother when I'm not one then I'm the other you used to be me full-time lover no I'm a single father and a part-time mother." Ino could hardly hold back the tears. She looked around and saw that all the women, save for Sakura, had tears in their eyes. The guys all looked like they would burst any moment too. She turned back to listen to the rest. "I spend every minute I can with my boy, there's no doubt about it's my pride and joy someday he'll grow up and I won't have him no more some things I just find too hard to explain so we go to McDonald's sir, I buy him a train and we go put it together in the living room floor. Such is the liffy if a single father says daddy explain if it's not too much bother while it's just you and me living here in this hame don't understand it neither does Huey there's just two when there should be three of us in this moment lord I feel so alone. Oh Sakura, how could you give up such a warm, loving person for a total iceberg of emotion? And how could you hurt that sweet little boy? Single father part-time mother when I'm not one then I'm the other you used to be me full-time lover no I'm a single father and a part-time mother." Naruto finished the song and put the guitar into the travel bag, stepped off the stage and walked over to Ino while holding out his hand. She rose from her seat and wiped the tears from her eyes, hooked her arm in his and walked out the door. The others all sat stunned until Lee let out a whoop and rushed out the door. Everyone jumped to their feet and ran leaving Sasuke and Sakura to their own devices. Sakura, it seems, was lost in her own thoughts while Sasuke was stewing on the inside. But no one noticed this. Everyone piled into the street and looked frantically for Naruto and Ino when they heard Lee actually talking quietly with them not 30 yards away. "I'm serious Naruto, that was beautiful. I did not know that you had that talent. You must come back and play again next Saturday. I don't know, Lee. I don't think I'm exactly welcome here. What are you, stupid? Of course we want you here. That was collectively everyone yelling all at once, even Hinata. The performance they had just witnessed had to be repeated again. He simply couldn't get off the hook after one time. They insisted that he come back next Saturday and play a new song. After much cajoling, Naruto relented and he and Ino set off for her apartment to say goodnight. The walk was quiet but comfortable. Naruto was thinking about how much fun he had had and Ino was scheming about how she could get another date out of him and get to hear that marvelous voice again. As if on cue, Naruto quelled any doubts in her mind. You know, Ino, I had a feeling that tonight was going to be a disaster, but I had more fun tonight than I've had in years. I want to thank you for making that possible. But I didn't do anything. Yes, you did. You took the initiative to ask me out and now I would appreciate it if you would give me the opportunity to return the favor. Ino, would you go out on a date with me? She was stunned. Naruto had just given her what she wanted and she hadn't had to ask. She was on cloud 9. Crashing back to earth, suddenly she realized that they had stopped walking a short while ago and were in front of her apartment building. Dredging up the old Ino bravado, she put on that devilish grin. Naruto immediately knew she was up to something. But of course, Naruto. I would love to go out with you again. But it has to be Saturday and you have to sing at the club again. Okay. Is that all? I was afraid you were going to want a striptease or something. Not yet. Maybe soon, but not yet. You do have a nice ass though. He immediately turned tomato red and Ino was satisfied with a job well done. Pretty soon she'd have him at her beck and call and well, that would be no fun, after all there's no challenge in a docile man. She said goodnight and turned to her door before smirking and spun around, grabbed him by the collar, jerked his head down and gave him a peck on the cheek. She then ran inside and slammed the door, leaving a stunned Naruto and a slightly hyperventilating Ino on both sides of the door. Both let a small smile creep onto their faces and went to do their own thing. Ino, of course, planning how she would gossip about her smashing success of a date with the hottest guy in town, and Naruto went to his house to relieve Jinmaki of babysitting duty. He arrived home and was tackled by his son. Did you have fun, daddy? Yes, son. I had a lot of fun and got to see many of my old friends. Was the Ino lady I saw here last night nice? She was pretty. I like her. And how did you see Ino last night? You were supposed to be in bed, young man. That was my fault, Lord Naruto. The little runt wanted to peek and I was curious as well, so looked in on you too. I hope you can forgive me. Naruto looked down at the small fox and reached to scratch his ears, causing Jinmaki to shake his leg and pant happily. Hikaru giggled at his caretaker's weakness and plotted to use it on him later. No, Jinmaki, I'm not angry with you. I had the best night of my life in 3 years tonight and Ino was an absolute angel. I hope to see more of her. Maybe she'll even take a liking to you and Hikaru. Now both of you go to bed, I'm tired. Sorry son, no song tonight. Oh, and Hikaru. Stop pulling the fox's tails. They hate when you do that and it's not nice. Understand? They both walked off grumbling and Naruto flopped on the couch with a sigh. Well, Ino. I hope you like me as much as you say you do because I plan to see a lot more of you soon. And I hope you take my secret well. With that he released his hinge and out popped 9 red foxtails with golden tips and ears of the same color. He stared at his claws and put his hands behind his head. He had to gain her trust and soon. Time was running short. The song is Single Father by Kid Rock. Chapter 3. It was once again Wednesday and Ino had been avoiding Sakura all week. She didn't want to have to answer any questions about her and Naruto. Working at the flower shop, however, put her in an easy-to-find position and it wasn't too soon that Sakura found her. There was going to be hell to pay now. How could you, Ino? How could you bring that thing, to the club with you? I don't want you around him anymore. Ino crossed her arms and glared at her supposed friend. How could she say those things about Naruto? He had never been anything less than kind and considerate to his friends and loving to those he really cared for. She didn't know where this was coming from. Really, Sakura, there is no need for you to worry. Naruto and I are just friends at the moment. And even if we were more than that, you have no reason and no right to tell me what I can and can't do. Ino, trust me. You don't want to get involved with him. He's not normal. You know, Sakura, I don't know why you're telling me all this. You had no complaints about Naruto until Sasuke came back. In fact, you were blissfully happy with him and his son. My son Ino? He's my son as well. Actually, Sakura, I think you gave up that right 3 years ago to be called his mother. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to get back to work. Fine, Ino. You just keep messing with that demon. You'll find out eventually that he isn't what he seems. And I'll take care of my son one way or the other. Ino scowled and folded her arms across her chest. What the hell was all that about? Naruto may have a demon in him, but he wasn't the demon. They had established all that years ago. There was more to this than meets the eye, and she would be sure to get to the bottom of it. She'd go talk to Naruto after she closed up the shop. On the way to Naruto's house, Ino was deep in thought. Why was Sakura being such a bitch about the situation? Maybe it wasn't smart for Naruto to sing that particular song last night, but he had every right to be bitter. She was the one who abandoned them, not the other way around. Still, she'd called Naruto a demon, and that bothered her. The Kyuubi, to her knowledge, was still locked up in his navel. And Naruto was never anything but kind to everyone, hell, even little kids loved him. He was like a magnet for children. Little boys loved his frog summons, and Gamakichi was a popular fixture around the park when Naruto and Hikaru were present. His fox summons were popular with the girls, and it wasn't uncommon to see a family of fox kits being cuddled and petted. Jinmaki sat by Naruto's side and carefully watched his charge play with the other children. It was such a common sight that nobody thought about it anymore. Ino smiled at the thought of Naruto being thought of as normal for once, a fixture in the community instead of an eyesore. Thinking even further back, she remembered the first time Naruto brought little Hikaru to the park. It was just after lunch and there were children playing all over the playground in the park. It seemed time froze and everyone looked up to see Naruto and Hikaru walk onto the field. All the adults looked at him with sadness in their eyes. Ino in particular felt bad for him. She was there with her little cousin. It had become public knowledge what had happened between him and Sakura, and he had their sympathies. He had become a living legend among the populace of Konoha for all his many battles and good deeds, and almost everyone respected him. Their children had heard stories of the golden-haired shinobi and all idolized him, but they had never seen him in person. He was tall and muscular and stood out like a sore thumb. All eyes immediately swung to the mini-me version hiding behind his legs. With his equally golden hair and pink tips, it was easy to see who his parents were, and the whiskers on his cheek left nothing to the imagination either. Naruto and Hikaru found their way to a bench and flopped down and were immediately swamped by a multitude of wide-eyed children. Eyes swung from him to his look-alike to the small fox in Hikaru's lap, and they were bombarded by questions. Naruto looked down at his son to see that he had a tight grip on Jinmaki and a look of curious fear in his eyes. He wanted to play with the children, but they were scaring him at the moment. Poor Jinmaki was having trouble breathing and the look on his face sent Naruto into a fit of laughter. All questions ceased as they watched a broad-chested shinobi throw his head back and laugh. Finally done, he turned his head back to the throng of children who had all plopped down on the grass. He looked out of the corner of his eyes at the parents who were all intrigued and wondering what would happen. He smirked and gave the children his full attention. "Now then, little ones, what do you want answered first? Who are you? Are you the one known as the Golden Cyclone?" "Yes, I am. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, and this is my son Uzumaki Hikaru. We came to the park so that he could make some friends and play with you. Would you let him do that?" The chorus of yeses rang out. After all, it wasn't every day you saw a living legend and he asked you to play with his son. That question answered, they turned to others. "Where did you get the fox? Can we pet him?" "Jinmaki is his name. You can pet him if he lets you. And he is my summon and my son's guardian. He protects Hikaru when I'm not around and is a member of my family." "The summon? I've never heard of anyone having a contract for a fox summon." Iruka-sensei said that the contracts for Konoha were the slug, snake, and toad summons. Naruto let out another belly laugh and nodded his head. "That is correct, little ones. Those are Konoha's summons. However, I am special and have a contract with the foxes. When Hikaru is old enough it will pass to him. But I have also signed the contract for the toads and I still use them on occasion. Gamabunta is a nice old toad and his children are friends of mine." Wide eyes and slack jaws were what greeted his eyes. "You're the toad senin. But how can you have two contracts? That shouldn't be possible. I've told you I'm special. The toads like me and let me have a second contract. Normally I would be forced to cancel my contract with the toads, but this was a special case. Here, I'll demonstrate." With that, he stood up and moved to a part of the park that had a good-sized clearing. He bit his thumb and yelled Kuchiyas no Jutsu. A cloud of smoke poofed into existence, and after a few moments Naruto was sitting on top of a large orange toad smoking a pipe. "Oi Naruto. Why did you call me out here? And who are all these children? Oi Hikaru. I haven't seen you for a while, kiddo. Come here and give Uncle Gamakichi a hug na." Not waiting for the boy to respond, Gamakichi snapped his tongue out and grabbed the boy, drawing him back in. He flicked his tongue and Hikaru landed flat on top of his nose, sprawled out spread eagle. Naruto snickered at this until Hikaru jumped up and began yelling at Gamakichi while stomping up and down on his forehead. "Uncle Kichi, would you do that? You could have killed me, you stupid frog. If you weren't daddy's friend I'd pound you into the ground." Both Naruto and Gamakichi bellowed with laughter at this, while all the adults and children stood by dumbfounded. Hikaru was fast becoming very popular in their minds. Not many had the guts to yell at a summoning creature nearly 50 times your size. All was quiet for a few moments until Jinmaki started yipping, letting Hikaru know he needed to come down. The boy leapt off of Gamakichi and rapidly descended to the ground, getting a collective gasp from the crowd that thought he'd get hurt until Gamakichi's tongue snaked out and caught him at the last moment. After setting him down, Gamakichi looked up at Naruto and winked and poofed out of existence. Naruto looked down at all the children and smiled. Now all of you, go play. Have fun. Sighing, Ino shook herself out of her memories. He really is a lovable guy. I really want to get to know him better. She kept walking until she reached Naruto's house. Creeping slowly she made her way to the window where she first encountered him and heard him talking to Jinmaki again in that growling, guttural language. She sat outside and folded her knees to her chest and waited to be let in. She knew that Naruto knew she was out there. He was simply biding his time. Soon, the growls and yips stopped and the window was thrown up. A tan face popped out and grinned at her. Humming an Ino? Or are you going to sit out there all night and catch your death of cold? She shrugged and crawled inside. He scolded her and told her to use the front door next time. She merely smirked and said she liked the window better. He gave her a lopsided grin and flopped down on his favorite chair and motioned for her to sit. She took off her shoes and curled up on the couch with her feet underneath her. She didn't even know where to begin, but luckily for her, Naruto hated silence when he was comfortable. So what brings you to my humble abode this time? You already got another date out of me, what else can I do for you? I want to know what secret you're hiding. His eyes bugged out and he thought quickly. Oh shit. I better think up something quick. I don't trust her enough to tell her the truth yet. I really want to, but I can't. Ino. I can't tell you all my secrets yet. I want to get to know you better before I do that. You might not like me if I divulge everything at once. Naruto, I know about the fox. We all do. I don't hate you for that. I want to know why Sakura calls you a demon. She said that you're a monster. I want to know why before I get more involved with you. I don't want to be dating a serial killer or something like that. I want to know why. Sigh. Ino, I can't tell you yet. Believe me when I say I want to, but I just don't trust you enough yet. I want to so badly. To feel at ease around you and we've only gone on one date. I feel at ease around you just like I used to with her. That last part came out like a whisper, but Ino heard it. She was so stunned that she didn't even notice Naruto getting up and moving to the couch. She was knocked out of her stupor when he put his arm around her and pulled her close to him. She let out an audible sigh and melted into his side. It had been so long since she had felt the comfort of an embrace without worrying about the guy being a pervert and trying to cop a feel. She turned her head and breathed in his scent. It was earthy with a hint of what was that smell. It was Animalicchio, right, the fox. He smelled like a fox. She'd heard Kiba say that before. She let out another sigh and heard a deep chuckle and realized what she was doing. She shot away from him as far as his arm would let her go and blushed a scarlet hue. He merely looked at her like it was natural. Ino, since you seem to be gung-ho about getting to know me and maybe be in a relationship with me, you need to be able to accept all the aspects of my life. My secrets are something that changes the dynamic, but above all I would want you to get along with Hikaru. He already likes you, but I want you to like him as well. Heh, he thinks you're pretty. Well, at least he and his father have good taste. I'd like nothing better than to get to know Hikaru. Even if we don't work out in the end, I'd at least like to get to know the son of a friend. Where is the little ankle biter anyway? You mean you haven't noticed? He's been here all along. And I thought you were one of the best with ninjutsu. Okay son, come out. The wall in front of the couch suddenly shimmered and out stepped Hikaru and Jinmaki. Be a pretty lady. My name's Hikaru and this is Jinmaki. Say hello Jinmaki. Hello Lady Amanaka. It is a pleasure to meet you. Ino blinked a few times and then stood and bowed to the two of them. They both bowed back and a smile graced all their faces. Ino took in the looks of both of them. Hikaru with his pink and blonde locks and whiskers and Jinmaki, who was in his fox kid form. The grin on Ino's face got bigger and bigger and once it looked like it was going to split her face, Hikaru and Jinmaki gulped. They had seen that look before and it always led to one thing. Oh my god. You two are too cute. With one swift motion the two were drawn into Ino's chest and smothered in a hug. Both were making exaggerated faces and screaming to Naruto to get the crazy lady off them. He couldn't really since he was too busy trying to breathe from lack of air from laughing. Finally, after a couple of minutes and a gagging boy and fox turning blue, something that should have been impossible due to Jinmaki's fur, Naruto hauled Ino off the two of them and sat her back on the couch while Hikaru and Jinmaki caught their breath. After the excitement wore off they all sat down to talk. Ino found that Hikaru was a very bright little boy. Naruto was teaching him chakra control and several jutsu. He didn't have the large reserves that Naruto had when he was that age, but with his father's guidance, he was already high genin level and he wasn't even in the academy yet. It seems that Naruto didn't want his son to have the education that he did, so he was teaching him everything he could at home to avoid any possible problems, like someone purposely misleading him on how to do something right. He was learning all of Naruto's jutsu, but hadn't started on Genjutsu, except for the invisibility cloak. At the ripe old age of 7 he was already a taijutsu aficionado. His father's style was purely bestial and relied on fast strikes and moving with fox-like precision. Lee had stepped up to the plate though and was teaching the boy his style in between missions. He took to it like a fish to water. Naruto just beamed with pride listening to his son extol his accomplishments. Ino couldn't help but feel a little proud herself, even though she hadn't had anything to do with him yet. She figured she could help the boy with his genjutsu, especially if she was going to be around more. Now it was her turn to talk. Hikaru sat enraptured listening to the beauty in front of him talk. He found it funny that she used to beat his dad up when they were younger and thought it hilarious how many funny stories Ino had about Naruto. All the pranks he used to play on people, his loud boisterous declarations about being Hokage, his fights with Tsunade, which Hikaru already knew about since Tsunade had already beaten it into Naruto that her grandchild was to grow up respectful, unlike a certain other blonde-haired bewhiskered brat, and his legendary status among the people of Konoha. But Miss Ino, I know all about daddy and the things he's done. I want to know about you. Who are you and what do you do? This took Ino aback. She wasn't expecting to be grilled by a 7-year-old about her past. She thought for a second and decided to give the academy answer to the question. Well, my name is Yamanaka Ino and I'm the same age as your father. I like flowers, arranging flowers, and listening to your daddy sing, which got a blush from Naruto that didn't go unnoticed. I dislike close-minded people and those who hate others for things they have no control over. I also don't like secrets, giving a pointed glance over to Naruto who had shifted his gaze to the window. My dream is to one day have a family and be the best interrogator in the interrogation corps. My hobbies are reading and hanging out with my friends when I have the time. Wow, cool. But what kind of ninja are you? What do you specialize in? Ino gave a glance at Naruto that screamed, what have you been teaching this boy? And sighed. I specialize in going inside people's heads. Literally. I can send my soul into another person and take over their body and make them do things. While in there I can read their thoughts among other things. I would never do that to anyone I know though. It's a huge invasion of privacy and although I really want to know what your daddy is hiding from me, I won't do it. That ability is what makes me a shoe-in for Ibiki's position when he retires. Unlike him, I don't have to resort to necessary force to get the information I want. Whoa, cool. So you're like a mind reader? Ino giggled at this. Apparently the boy had also inherited Naruto's ability to simplify everything as well. That's it in a nutshell. That's my special power besides ninjutsu. I'm not one much for taijutsu and my ninjutsu is kinda subpar. Daddy can help you with that. He has lots of time on his hands since he only does S-rank missions. He says they pay a lot even though he doesn't need the money since grandpa was rich and his books bring in a lot of money. Unfortunately, Naruto wasn't quick enough to clap his hand over Hikaru's mouth before he said anything about the books. He really didn't want to have to explain his extra income, but with Ino staring at him curiously he knew he wasn't getting out of this easily. So Naruto, what kind of books do you write? Daddy won't tell me what he writes, but he says I can't know until I'm older. Damn it, when did his mouth get uncovered? I don't want to tell you yet. Quirking her eyebrow, Ino narrowed her eyes and gave him a pointed look. Knowing what kind of books he wrote wasn't such a big thing to know, was it? Especially if she might have read them before. Seeing that he wasn't getting away with not answering, he sighed and gave in. Remember how I'm the Toad Senin now? Well, that kind of entails a lot of things. One of them being an author in your spare time. And? What do you write? As part of my apprenticeship with Jiraiya, I had to take over his spy network and his research. His research? What do you mean bio? Oh. Naruto was the author of Icha Icha. She had read quite a few of those books in recent years and had really appreciated the turn in the series. Going from nothing but mindless sex with a plot thrown in, it had changed to a plot with lovemaking and occasional mindless sex. It was infinitely better written than when Jiraiya had been the author, but his successor to the series had turned it around and it was no longer shameful to admit that you read the books. They still weren't appropriate for children, but they were now more accessible and enjoyable for everyone, especially couples. The new author had a section in the back of every book with suggestions to spice up a love life. Ino blushed at the thought of doing some of those suggestions with a certain other blonde, which didn't go unnoticed by Naruto. The realization that she was obviously a fan brought a smirk to his face. Ino, have you been reading Icha Icha? Why, yes, I believe you have. So care to tell me what you think of my stories? Would you like an autograph? Any suggestions? Inmaki saw the perverted side of Naruto coming out and decided now was the time for Hikaru, whose head looked like a tennis ball going back and forth between looking at his daddy and the pretty lady, and him to make a hasty retreat before things got out of hand. Lord Naruto, I believe that Hikaru and I will go outside and practice his genjutsu now. Come along Hikaru. It was nice meeting you Lady Yamanaka. Ino please. Call me Ino, Jinmaki. We'll be seeing more of each other in the future after all, and we should be as friendly as possible. After certain revelations, I know that I'll be around more. Bye Hikaru. I'll see you later. Hikaru saw the devilish grin on her face and was about to ask what she meant, but Jinmaki transformed into a fox the size of a greyhound and drug him out by his collar, kicking and screaming the whole way. Ino watched dumbfounded until she felt two arms encircle her around her shoulders and felt someone breathing by her ear. She wasn't prepared for that and nearly collapsed onto the ground. Fortunately for her Naruto had a good grip on her. So Ino, you never answered my question. Do you enjoy my stories? Turning a shade of red that would have made a 12-year-old Hinata say damn, Ino nodded her head. She wasn't just a fan, she was a huge fan and had sometimes fought Kakashi for a copy of the books. Who would have thought that Naruto of all people would have been such a romantic and a pervert at the same time? That's when a thought hit her and she narrowed her eyes in victory and that smirk crossed her face again. So Naruto, does Kakashi know you're the author of Icha Icha? No. I don't think so. Why? Seeing the puzzled look on his face just made her victory all the more satisfying. She turned in his arms and threw her own around his neck. Smiling sweetly she looked into his eyes. Because you know about Kakashi's slavish devotion to the series and its dirtiness. I thought so. He was visibly upset when the dirty scenes gave way to lovemaking and an actual plot. Now then, what would he do if he found out that the reason for his precious little orange book's changes were his former student? I think you'd have a lot to answer for. And I don't think he's the only upset one. Naruto visibly blanched at this. People hounding him for the details of the latest story before it came out he could handle. People suggesting things he could handle. An upset Kakashi who had been denied his smut was something he didn't want to face, even if he was a Sannin. He had changed the direction of the series because of his own personal tastes, and the sales had skyrocketed when women figured out it was now as accessible to them as men. Hell, even Jiraiya had loved the new direction. The man was a hopeless romantic at the center of his perverted heart and had promptly asked for the first book, signed, of every issue. But he had toned down the filthiness in the books and some hated him for it. Kakashi would be one of those. He looked down at the impish smile on Ino and began to sweat. What do you want in exchange for silence, Ino? She crooked her finger, motioning for him to bend down. He complied and when his chin was even with her eyes she grabbed his collar and jerked him into a kiss. It was awkward at first, but eventually his surprise was beaten down and he got into it. Her eyes shot open when he deepened the kiss and she realized that he did indeed have the experience to write his novels. They broke the kiss and she looked up at him dreamily. That was demand number 1. You're a great kisser by the way. Demand number 2 is more dates. Demand 3. You have to sing to me whenever I want. Demand 4 is up to you, but you know what the consequences will be if you don't comply. I want us to date and be seen in public together. If we continue down the path we're on, after 2 months I want us declared a couple. Understood? He nodded dumbly and was jerked into another kiss. Neither saw the two small shadows in the doorway, grinning like lunatics. Hikaru closed the door and they walked outside to work on his genjutsu. Daddy looks happy, doesn't he, Jinmaki? I haven't seen him smile like that since before mommy left. He does look happy. Now listen to me, Hikaru. You're a bright boy and I want you to let these two work this out on their own. Do not under any circumstances tell Lady Yamanaka about your father's appearance under that hinge. Do you understand? Hikaru nodded and went to work on his cloaking jutsu. If it made his father happy to date Miss Ino, wouldn't complain. He was smart for a little boy and he knew that his daddy needed someone to love. A small smile lit his face up. Maybe, just maybe if the two of them worked out, he'd have a new mommy. Breaking yet another kiss, Ino put her hands on Naruto's chest and said she had to go. He was disappointed, but they both had things to do the next day. He walked her to the door and ushered her out with a promise to call her up for a date later in the week. Another quick peck on the cheek and she was gone in a whirl of leaves. Naruto shut the door and went looking for his 2 charges. He found Hikaru asleep leaned up against an equally knocked out Jinmaki. Chuckling he picked them up and brought them inside. Having nothing better to do, he began to work on the next volume of Icha Icha with a blonde-haired heroine with a ponytail. Ino made her way home and took a shower. She thought about the night's events and decided things were going in a good direction. The only thing that bothered her was Naruto's big secret, but he had promised to reveal it to her in good time. Flopping down on her bed, she thought of how sweet Naruto was and how his past was such a mystery to her. Narrowing her eyes, she thought back to how Sakura had divorced him, and only after several months of trying had she been let back into their circle of friends, albeit reluctantly. Ino still had never totally forgiven Sakura, but to promote peace, she tolerated her. Stealing her resolve, she decided that tomorrow she would go and talk to Sakura and once and for all get her side of the story. Looking to the bedside table, she saw a familiar orange book. The thought of who wrote it in her mind made her blush, and she grabbed the book and opened it to where she had last been reading. Her appreciation had gone up tenfold in the past few hours for the series. With the blush still on her face, she began to read about Akira and Kagome and how they were able to overcome social status to be happy while still maintaining an active bedroom life. Chapter 4. As Ino stood outside the Uchiha clan house, she tried to remember why she was there in the first place. Thoughts flooded her mind. Naruto breaking down, the image of Hikaru crying, how they both put on a smile despite how much the betrayal of Sakura must have hurt. She scowled and the reason came to her. She had Naruto's side of the story, now she wanted Sakura's. Naruto was not one to lie about things, but he sometimes left out information that could be crucial, like the time Sasuke put a chidori through his chest and he didn't tell anyone. That set her to steaming again and she pounded on the door with all her might. She reasoned with herself that it was a big house and she wanted them to hear her even if she left a dent in the door. It had nothing to do with the fact that she was pissed all over again. Moments after her beating of the door, it creaked open and revealed Sasuke in all his brutal glory. He was still a heartthrob. The classic black locks and a duck's ass hairdo, the perpetual scowl on his face, and the body of a genius. However, his looks just made Ino's scowl darken more as she thought back to how blindly she had followed him in her younger days. If she would have been a bit more observant, then she might have seen how wonderful a person Naruto was, and neither of them would have been alone. She was startled out of her thoughts by a buzzing in her ears. "You want? What do you want, Ino?" I want to speak to Sakura if I can." Sasuke just nodded once and opened the door wide and ushered her in. After closing the door, he motioned for her to follow him and led her into a large room where Sakura was playing with their two children. He grunted, letting her know he was there, and her head perked up and she glared when she saw Ino. Ino saw this and cleared her throat. "Sakura, I've come to talk to you about the other day alone." Seeing that he and his children were not needed here, Sasuke led them out and shut the door. Actually using some tact for once, thought Ino. Sakura sat on the floor with her legs crossed and an expectant look on her face. Ino crossed the floor and sat across from her. She didn't really know where to begin this, but found out how when Sakura opened her mouth. "So, come to apologize for the other day and tell me I'm right. I knew you'd come around eventually." Ino's head shot up so quick you'd have thought her neck would snap. She glared at Sakura, which made the pink-haired woman gulp. Finding her resolve, Ino launched into a conversation that would change her views on several people. "No, I haven't changed my mind from the other day and I won't apologize. What I've come here for is a reason for what you said. We all know that the fox is sealed inside Naruto, but he isn't the damn fox. I want to know why you divorced a very kind, loving, and noble man for an ice cube like Sasuke. I want to know why you abandoned your son. I want to know why you hate Naruto now." Instead of getting defensive, Sakura just sighed, which confused Ino greatly. When she raised her head, Ino saw tears in her eyes. "Everything you've said about Naruto is true, Ino. Yes, he is kind, loyal, loving, and noble. He cares for Hikaru like nothing else. He loved me unconditionally. My life with him was content. I wanted for nothing while I was married to him. I don't hate Naruto the man, however. I hate Naruto the demon. You weren't there every time he lost control to the fox. He hurt me, Ino. I was scared the last 4 years of our marriage. I'd go to sleep and wonder if I'd wake up the next morning. The only thing that kept me there was Hikaru. Then Sasuke came back and my love for him came hurtling back. I fell in love all over again with him. He was so handsome and he'd accomplished his dream of killing his brother and I wanted to help him restore his clan. I needed to help him restore his clan. No one else could love him the way I could. I immediately marched up and declared my love for him and you know what he did. He kissed me, Ino, and electricity shot through my body. I hadn't felt like that since of her. Naruto never made me feel like that. I was safe and warm with Naruto, but with Sasuke I felt alive again and I felt needed. I was needed. Nobody else would let him marry their daughters and all of you had given up on him. Hell, even Naruto didn't want to save him anymore. I couldn't stay married to Naruto anymore, Ino. Sasuke needed me more." Ino sat back and let all this soak in. Some things just didn't add up. "So you never loved Naruto? What about Hikaru?" "Of course I cared about Naruto. And I could never not love my son. I didn't ask if you cared about him. I asked if you loved him." Silence answered her. Sakura's head hung down and then her eyes shot back up to lock onto Ino's. "No. I never loved him. Not like that. I cared about him, yes, but I never loved him." Then why did you marry him? Give him a son. Give him hope. Because I had no one else. He made me feel wanted. I didn't love him, but I at least felt assured that he wouldn't leave me. Hikaru was a mistake anyway. I didn't want to get pregnant by Naruto. I love Hikaru, but I never wanted him. That's fucked up, Sakura. Neither of them deserved what you did. And how can you say you love your son when you left him all alone with someone you call a monster? Because demons can't or won't hurt their own. I read up on demon lore. Naruto can't hurt his child in a life-threatening way. The demon in him won't let him. Besides, Sasuke wouldn't have wanted Hikaru living here with our children. Ino narrowed her eyes at her supposed best friend. This situation was becoming more and more fucked up by the second. In Sakura's mind she had done something normal. She didn't have any remorse because for some reason she had convinced herself that Naruto was a danger to her and everyone else. She wasn't any better than those ignorant-ass villagers back in the day. Then a thought clicked in her mind. Your children even know they have a brother? Hikaru is not their brother. And I've told them to stay away from him. You bitch. He's your son. And you're acting no better than those goddamn villagers. Keep your voice down, Ino. What goes on in here is between you and me. I don't want my children brought into this. Telling them to stay away. You saw what happened to Naruto in his childhood. You were on his team. For God's sake, Sakura, think of how it must have felt to him to be ostracized for no reason. Why would you do that? Because Sasuke said. She immediately clapped her hand over her mouth. She'd said too much. Ino's eyes burned with a ferocity that would have torched the Uchiha compound if they would have burst from her. After a few deep breaths, she was able to get herself under control and locked her icy gaze on Sakura, leaving the other Kunoichi very uncomfortable. Because Sasuke said so, huh? That's low, Sakura. I thought you were over your fangirl days. That's ignorant and very shitty of you. In fact, as of right now, I'm through with you. I don't want anything to do with you. And just to let you know that I am going to be with Naruto. I'm starting to fall for him, Sakura. He's everything I've ever wanted in a man. Hikaru is such a kind, polite little boy, and when he was telling me what all he knew, do you know what I felt? I felt a pride in him, a sort of motherly pride that I shouldn't feel because I don't know him yet. But I'm going to change that, Sakura. I'm going to get to know the both of them. And Sakura, I want you to know. No one was happy with your decision to leave Naruto. You were hated for quite a while. Sasuke has never been fully reaccepted. What he did when he left this village should have resulted in a death penalty. I got over my thing for Sasuke long ago. You had a good man, Sakura, one of the best. And you let him go because of a childish crush that you think is love. You have 2 children by an iceberg of emotion that doesn't even know what love is. You want my advice, Sakura? Stay away from Naruto and Hikaru. Raise your children with your love because I don't think they'll get any from Sasuke. Make sure that they don't become like him. Before I go, I want you to ask yourself one question. Just one. Has Sasuke ever even said that he loves you? In 3 years, has he ever said that he loves you? Or have you taken that for granted? I used to hear Naruto say he loves you every day. I could see it in his eyes. You fucked up, Sakura, and you fucked up big. Goodbye, Sakura. This is our last goodbye. Ino turned and opened the door and walked out, leaving it open. She passed Sasuke on her way out and gave him a cold stare. He raised an eyebrow at her and watched her walk by. He'd never gotten the cold shoulder from any girl, let alone Ino. She used to hang off every word he said. He continued on into the room where he had left the 2 of them and saw Sakura sitting on the floor with her knees drawn up close to her and her chin resting on her hands. He crossed the floor and stood in front of her. I take it your talk didn't go well. No, not at all. I lost another friend today. Something to do with the dobe? I thought as much. Stay away from her, Sakura. She'll be nothing but trouble. Perhaps I can do something about her when I become Hokage. Sakura looked up at him with a bewildered stare. Why would he try to hurt Ino because of Naruto? He shouldn't care about him anymore. Putting her head back on her knees, she stared straight ahead and caught him leaving out of the corner of her eyes. Sasuke, I have a couple questions for you, dear. What is it? I have much to do. I don't have time to stand around all day for you. She winced at the tone and the use of words. A tiny glimmer of doubt ignited in her heart for the first time in 3 years. She had always taken his words in stride, but after her conversation with Ino, she was more down than normal. Usually the glow of being a Uchiha Sakura was enough to keep her going. She formed her words carefully. "Do you love me?" He gave her a stare that could have melted steel and offered up one of his classic HNS and walked out the door, leaving an unusually quiet Sakura. He didn't answer her, but then again he never answers her. Why should now be any different? He'd never really said he loved her, but she always knew he did. Why then did his silence hurt so much more than before? Naruto had always made her feel special when he said I love you, like she was the only girl in the world. She missed that feeling and wanted it back. But it was too late. Ino was right, she had fucked up. At that moment she felt two pressures on her back and leaned back to see her two children with their arms wrapped around her. She put on a fake smile and hugged them back. "Why are you crying, mama? Did that blonde lady say something mean to you?" "No dear, I was just remembering someone from my past. A friend that I treated wrong. But don't worry about that. Let's get some lunch. How about going to Ichiraku's for ramen?" "But daddy said we couldn't have ramen. He said that only dobes eat ramen." "Oh Sasuke, that wasn't right. Maybe I should apologize to Naruto and Hikaru. I want to see my little boy again. But I won't tell the kids right now. I need to iron these things out myself." The two children, seeing their mother space out, began to wave their hands in front of her face. Once she noticed them again, she smiled and stood up. "So daddy says that ramen is for dobes, huh? Well, guess what, you two? Today we're going to be dobes, at least for a little while. Mommy used to have a friend who was a dobe and he was one of the most special people she ever knew." "Wow, really, mommy? Can you tell us about him?" Sakura smiled and thought back to her childhood days. This would make the trip to Ichiraku's more pleasant. "Of course I can. Once upon a time, there was a dope in my class named Naruto. Ino stomped through Konoha, actually leaving indents in the ground. Women, children, and even full-grown men dove out of her way. She hadn't been this angry since it was revealed that Sasuke had left and nearly gotten two of her best friends killed. She was going to go home and vent, but she had to pass by Naruto's estate to get there, and her anger melted when she heard the sounds of battle coming from his backyard. Fearing an attack on Hikaru, she bounded over the gates and ran to the corner of the house. Leaning around the corner, she witnessed an astounding sight. All around Hikaru were bunches of Naruto, while Hikaru stood in the middle with a blindfold on. Naruto and Jinmaki stood off to the side while Naruto shouted out directions for Hikaru. Ino was worried for the boy until she saw him leap for one of the clones and kick it in the chest. He vaulted off the clone before it disappeared and punched another in the face. Placing his hand on its shoulder, he twisted in midair and continued on until all the clones were destroyed, leaving a panting Hikaru and an amused Naruto and Jinmaki. Walking forward, Naruto clapped his hand on Hikaru's shoulder and congratulated him. "Very good, son, but you still have some flaws. You touched the ground on the next to last one. You know you're not supposed to touch the ground when training in this style. You're supposed to let the bodies of your enemies be a springboard onto more enemies, keeping them off balance and putting yourself on the high ground. Now let's try this again." A sharp ahem from Jinmaki made Naruto turn his head and he saw some familiar blonde locks at the corner of the house. He looked down at his son and put his finger to his lips. The boy nodded and Naruto poofed behind Ino and put his hands around her waist. She squealed and struggled while Naruto tried to contain his laughter. "Ino, damn it, stop struggling. It's me. I just wanted to surprise you." She apparently didn't hear him and kept cursing and struggling, so he did the only thing he could think of to shut her up so the assault on his ears would cease. He spun her quickly and planted a kiss on her lips. Her eyes flew wide open and once she saw whom it was, she closed her eyes and he could feel her smirk. Before he could even move away, she had grabbed his hair in her hands and pulled him even further into the kiss while he waved his arms in dramatic fashion and tried to yank away from the lip lock. After satisfying herself, she let him go and he leapt back while gasping for breath. "Jesus Christ, Ino. Have you been taking lessons from Anko on how to get a man? You don't try to suffocate him if you want him to stay around." "Well, I don't remember giving you permission to kiss me either. Nice trick, by the way. I'll remember that one if you ever start rambling on me." The sound of a throat clearing broke them out of their revelry and they both had the decency to blush when they saw the two staring at them. Jinmaki looked at both of them and then a gleam came to his eyes. Naruto began to get nervous when he saw the feral grin forming on Jinmaki's face. That face never bode well for him in the end. "Lord Naruto, go inside and get cleaned up. Leave some clones to work with Master Hikaru. Lady Yamanaka, please come with me. There is something I wish to discuss with you in private." "Jinmaki. Do not fear, my lord. I shall not divulge your secret, no matter how much I feel you should just tell the young lady. Hikaru, continue with your practice. And as for you, my lord, you get cleaned up and dressed appropriately for an evening out." "And why would I do that? I don't remember having any engagements this evening." "Because I said so. You are taking Lady Yamanaka out this evening and I don't want to hear any arguments. Dress to kill because I want to see her jaw drop when we get back." "Understood. I thought so. My lady, come with me. I wish to discuss some things with you." Naruto walked inside his house mumbling about who was the master and who was the servant, which made Ino giggle until a harem from the fox made her head turn. He jerked his head motioning for her to follow and they walked into the forest. Once suitably out of sight, Jinmaki turned and spoke. "Climb on my back. We are going to your apartment. I do not want any interruptions from Lord Naruto because of his insatiable curiosity." After they had poofed out of existence, neither heard the clone swear because his mission had failed. Damned foxes and their trickery. Once in Ino's apartment, she climbed off of Jinmaki's back and sat on her couch, waiting for him to speak. He cleared his throat once again. Chronic throat problems is what he told her later, from yelling at Naruto and Hikaru so much, which sent her into a giggle fit and addressed her. "Lady Ino, may I call you Ino?" "Yes. Thank you. Lady Ino, I believe that you are falling in love with my lord, are you not?" "Well, I don't know about love, but yes, I am very attracted to him." "I see. I believe you are beginning to love him, even though you have known him only a short time. I want you to know that he is a very fragile person at heart. I am very loyal to Lord Naruto, and if I believe that you are leading him on or intend to hurt him the way Sakura did, I will not hesitate to hurt you. Do we have an understanding?" "Of course. I would never hurt Naruto like that. Too like him too much to do that." "That is good. I hope that the two of you can become close. Perhaps mates even." "Mates? What the hell do you mean by mates?" "Ah, forgive me. Mates to foxes are the same as spouses to you humans. I wish for the two of you to achieve this. I believe in my heart that you will be good for him. Do you know what he has gone through in 3 years? He has basically killed his heart. In one night you broke through that wall of resistance and he opened up to you. I want that feeling nurtured more. If you promise to try to love him, I will help you to understand him better." "Agreed." "Agreed. But I can't try to love someone. Either I will or I won't. It's as simple as that." "Well, be that as it may. We foxes, however, have a different way of thinking. You do not know it yet, but you do love him, just as he loves you. It is an instinct that allows you to select your mate. This Sakura was not meant to be my lord's mate, no matter how much he wanted her to be. It was not meant to be. You two are, however. I will make you a deal. You try to heal my lord's heart and at the same time fill the hole in your own, and I will tell you how to bring down one wall of resistance. Deal?" "Deal. But how did you know that I was lacking companionship?" "Your smell, my dear. You haven't been with a male in a long time. You lack the scent of anyone but Lord Naruto on you. As for the method of breaking his wall, I would suggest you wait until the two of you are dating as you call it, to use it. You've seen his birthmarks, correct, on his cheeks. Those are not birthmarks, they are actual whiskers. And they work just like mine do. Rub them in a relaxing manner and he will become relaxed. Rub them when he's aroused and he'll be putty in your hands. Rub them violently and he'll more than likely kill you in a rage. In a relaxed state his hinge will drop and reveal his true look to you. Do not be afraid. I believe he will be, how do you females put it, cute. So those aren't birthmarks. And they'll do all that. I know what to do with him now. I promise I won't use that trick until after we're dating, however. And I will not be put off by his true appearance. I know that Naruto is a good man. I will not be frightened or disgusted. On my honor." "Excellent. You are an excellent choice of mate. Strong-willed. You will challenge my lord. Now go get ready for your date. Make sure you dress to kill because I want to see his jaw drop when we get back." "Isn't that what you told Naruto?" Inmaki just grinned evilly and began to laugh. "Of course it is. I just want to see you two fools' faces when you look at each other. I'm sure it will be quite the spectacle." He never saw the copy of Icha aimed at his head. That date was magical. And of course Jinmaki got a good laugh at their expense when they both had to scrape their jaws off the floor. His reward was 1,000 years of death that sent him flying. After 2 months Naruto and Ino acknowledged their relationship to their friends and everyone was happy for them. Naruto was finally back to his old cheerful self and everybody was happy. The sunshine of Konoha had come again. Tsunade was the first one he went to and their conversation was filled with tears, hugs, and much joy. She had refused to acknowledge Sasuke as her successor and had flat out refused to teach him anything about the job. The first day he showed up to be taught, she had threatened to break his manhood off and send it to Sakura in a paper bag if he didn't leave her office. She never saw him again, although she did hear that he had complained to the council. Not that she cared. Normally the Hokage chooses their successor, but in this case the council had deemed Naruto unfit to serve. He was good enough to die for the village as a ninja, but not good enough to live for it as a Hokage. He chuckled when he heard about how furious Gaara was and decided that he needed to check up on his old friend. His trip to Suna was short and he was surprised that even on the streets he was heralded as a hero. Gaara was very fond of him and the Kazekage considered him a brother, which brought his respect to the citizens of Suna to an all-time high. His conversation with him was heartfelt and Gaara was infinitely sorry about all that had happened to him. The both of their delights, Hikaru and Gaara's daughter, hit it off spectacularly. Gaara jokingly suggested a political marriage to which Naruto responded with a hell no. If the two fell in love, that was one thing. Forced love was another. His trip to Suna ended all too soon and he was now back in Konoha. Their date had gone great and they were now back at Naruto's house. Jinmaki had taken Hikaru on a camping trip to get him out of the house so Ino and Naruto could have some privacy. They were sitting on the couch making out when Ino remembered Jinmaki's advice about their relationship. They were now 4 months into their confirmed relationship, making them together for a little over 6 months. She grinned in their kiss and pushed away from him. He gave her a confused look and she just smirked. "Lie down on the floor. I'm gonna give you a massage." He looked at her quizzically and shrugged. If she wanted to give him a massage, hey, who was he to complain? Besides, it sounded really good. He laid down on the floor and was surprised when she raised his head and placed it in her lap. He looked up at her and raised his eyebrow. "Since when does a massage go like this?" "Since I'm giving it. Now shut up and enjoy, Mr. Itcha Itcha." But that she told him to close his eyes and relax. Not a hard thing to do when she began rubbing his chest, causing him to moan. She grinned and told him to sit up and take off his shirt. Once the deed was done, she went back to work. She ran her hands everywhere, appreciating his musculature and flawlessly unscarred body. Slowly she worked her way up his neck until she was sure that he didn't notice that her hands were on his cheeks. She began to stroke the whisker mark slowly and heard a weird noise. Listening more carefully, she soon discovered it was him purring. "Oh, this is too cute," she thought. Continuing with her ministrations, she soon noticed the air around him beginning to waver. "Here it comes." Suddenly the hinge dropped and his ears disappeared to be replaced with red fox ears and 9 tails swirling underneath him. The smile on his face never disappeared as he was too far gone into the pleasure to notice. Ino gaped at the tails and ears but remembered her promise not to judge his appearance. She kept stroking his cheeks and took in his new look. His hair was longer than usual and had red streaks at the end. His fangs and claws were more pronounced and overall he gave off an erotic exotic aura. His purring had not ceased and his tails were wagging around. One of them was knocking against her leg in a happy wag and she struggled hard not to giggle. She wasn't frightened by his appearance. She cared too much about him to be scared. Hell, to her he looked even more adorable than before, and oh what the hell, she had what she thought was the hottest guy around. And he was all hers. Not thinking, she took one hand off his cheeks, causing him to nuzzle into her other hand more and began scratching his ears. She couldn't stifle the giggle when the tails thumped harder and his leg began to shake in a decidedly canine fashion. His smile grew larger and larger until she couldn't contain it anymore and laughed joyfully out loud. This brought him out of his stupor and he looked up at her lovingly until he saw the tails out of the corner of his peripheral vision. His hand shot to his mouth and he felt the fangs and the claws, which then moved to his ears. She stared at him confusedly and wondered why he was reacting this way until he looked up woefully at her. She felt her heartstrings tug and realized that he thought she would hate him. Before he could do anything, she leant down and kissed him with as much passion as she could to let him know it was okay. After he calmed down and began to kiss her back, she sat back up and resumed scratching his ears. They remained silent for a while until he couldn't bear it anymore. "So you're not freaked out by this? How can you not be?" Because I love you. And I promised Jinmaki that I would love you unconditionally even if you look different." "He told you?" "Grit, that little asshole." "No, Naruto, he didn't tell me. I found out on my own. In fact, I love the way you look right now. You're very exotic and hot." This brought back his cockiness and the smirk on his face threatened to break it in two. "Oh, you think so, do you?" Her smirk was equally as big and she waggled her eyebrows at him. "Yeah, I do. Now are you gonna show me if those tails do more than wag, or am I gonna have to do everything tonight?" Chapter 5. Ino woke the next morning feeling great. She didn't know why, but she just had the feeling that she was being protected and whatever was wrapped around her was very warm and fuzzy. Upon realizing that thought, she blinked her eyes and began to move around. She looked down and realized first off she was only in an oversized t-shirt and a pair of boxers that weren't hers. Looking around, she found the reason for her contentment and gave a happy sigh. Laying beside her was a fox in human form. His 9 tails wrapped around her, keeping out the chill, and his ears twitching in his sleep. Unknowingly she began to stroke one of the tails and was delighted to see it thump against her leg. She was startled when she heard a pleasant moan come from the body beside her, but that brashness of hers made her keep going. After all, messing with Naruto was too much fun. Not wanting him to have any accidents, she stopped her ministrations and unwound herself from her fuzzy prison reluctantly. Stretching, she began to take in the sights. Naruto's bedroom was a sight to behold. Weapons decorated the walls and suits of samurai armor stood along the wall across from the bed. A fireplace stood on the opposite end with 2 leather armchairs in front of it. The room was huge, almost the size of her whole apartment. She loved it and hoped to see more of it in the future. During her tour of the house last night, she had noticed that while the house as a whole was charming and cozy, it needed a woman's touch. Naruto and Hikaru were the epitome of bachelors, only having the bare necessity of items and pleasantries. This would have to change. Out of the corner of her eye she noticed a desk with a notebook opened on top. Curiosity getting the better of her, she sauntered over and flopped into the chair and began to read. After several minutes she put the notebook back where it should have been and readjusted the pages. Putting her hands to her cheeks she realized that they were on fire from blushing. Naruto was writing an Icha book where she was the star. Hell, he'd barely even changed the name. She was somewhere between turned on and pissed when she felt a pressure on her back and something soft and furry stroke her cheeks. Leaning back she saw wide-awake Naruto with a huge smile on his face. "So you've been reading my work without permission. TSK Ino. I thought you knew better. But seeing as how you've read it now, what do you think? Am I worthy of being the writer of Icha or what?" Ino looked back down at the notebook and began to think. He was a great writer, that was for damn sure. And being immortalized in a book sounded really great. But, on the other hand, she was going to be in his dirty little book and everyone knew about their relationship. She couldn't be seen in that light. Her parents would kill her first and him second after they got through trying some of the things he wrote. She was brought out of her musings by a tickling, warm feeling and looked down to see he had his tails woven around her. She giggled and stroked them before looking back up at his face. "I like it. But you ever write about the things we did last night and I swear I'll have a new fur wrap for my shoulders. Got it?" The sugary, sweet way it was said did nothing to help the dark undertones of what she was saying. With a gulp, Naruto just nodded his head yes. Seeing her smile in victory, she was getting way too many wins for his taste. He decided to have the life-changing conversation he'd put off since last night. He would have done it yesterday, but a certain blonde had latched herself onto him and, well, luckily Hikaru wasn't around to see the collateral damage. Ino smiled in spite of herself. Who knew the tails were so useful or that fox ears were apparently so sensitive? She'd had him at her beck and call, and all she'd done was scratch his ears. Her thoughts were broken when she heard Naruto sigh. "Come into the living room, Ino. I'll make some tea and we can discuss why I look like I do and where we go from here." She nodded dumbly and made her way to her favorite couch. Picking up a blanket and spreading it over her legs, she propped herself up on some pillows and waited. Soon enough Naruto reappeared carrying a tray of tea and some cookies and set them on the small table in front of her. He poured her a cup and handed it off, settling into the cushion beside her. She took a sip of tea and sighed. Naruto was an excellent cook and he always made the best tea. Putting her eyes sideways, she saw him sitting there with a far-off look. Before she could ask what's wrong, he cleared his throat. "Ino, did you mean it last night when you said you loved me?" Yes. I do. It's taken me a while to realize it, but I believe I do. Do you accept me as I am? Would you hate me if I am something I don't appear to be? I'm not everything you see on the surface, Ino. There's more. And I don't know how you'll take it. But for us to have anything after today, I'm going to tell you everything. Then tell me everything. I'm pretty sure that there's nothing you can tell me that would make me hate you, Naruto. Besides, you look pretty cute as a fox boy and I wouldn't change that for the world. Yeah, that's funny. We'll see if your tune changes or not. God, I hope not. Truth be told, Ino, I'm starting to fall in love with you. I can't help it. There's something about you that makes me feel safe and wanted, like you'll accept me for me. All I ask is that you don't ask me any question while I talk. This is difficult for me and I want to be able to tell it my way. Now I know that you know of the Kyuubi and how it was sealed into me. You know of my childhood and how I grew up. You know of how we defeated the Akatsuki. You know that I am the Toad Sennin. You know that I am Uzumaki Naruto, the son of the Yondaime Hokage. You know of my failed marriage to Sakura and my shattered dream of being Hokage. What you don't know is that there are reasons for it all. Some I know, some I don't. I know why the Kyuubi was sealed into me, but I don't know his reason for attacking the village. Every time I spoke to him he was a complete asshole. I hated him, but he kept me alive all these years so I can't really complain. I know we defeated the Akatsuki, but I don't know why they wanted all the Bijuu except to rule the world. I am the Toad Sennin, but I don't feel I deserve the title and I won't be able to keep it long anyway. I am the son of the Yondaime, but I have never been a son to anyone. I am a father and yet at times I feel I have failed my son because of what his mother did. I don't know why she left, but I know it was not because of my appearance now. She doesn't know about this, no one knows but you and Hikaru. Tsunade doesn't even know. I didn't change until after Sakura left. It's complicated, but you deserve to know. The day after she left, I was trying to comfort Hikaru when a small pillar of flame burst next to me. I didn't know what was going on so I leapt to my feet and put my back to the wall. Out of the flames stepped a small black fox with an ethereal glow about him. He looked around the room and then looked at me. He raised his head and then bowed low. He called me Lord Kyuubi. I didn't know what to think and demanded to know what he meant. He informed me that the old Kyuubi was soon to be dead, totally integrated into my system, and that made me the holder of the title Kyuubi. I was dumbfounded to say the least. He kept on with his explanation that since I used most of my power to keep the old Kyuubi at bay, that I had the power base of 2 nine-tailed Bijuu. I was, in essence, a god among men. Imagine Ino, losing your wife one day and then finding that you are now considered the commander of a Vulpine army, a legion totally loyal to you. But there was one problem, he said. I was still human. To attain my power I would have to completely absorb the old Kyuubi and take my rightful place as a demon king. I couldn't believe what he was asking me to do. Become a demon. That's what I had strove to prove I wasn't my whole life. But the more I thought about it, the more I didn't care. Why risk my life for people who didn't care for me when I could accept this power and keep my son safe? I could accept this power and rule a new people, as a king, not just a Hokage. At the time I still didn't know that being Hokage was inaccessible to me, but I thought I could have the best of both worlds. Childish, yes, but who in history could claim to be a demon in the cage of Konohagakure? I agreed to this fusion of sorts, and the fox began to chant. I became lost in his words and felt my mind collapse in on itself. Everything became a blur, and I found myself in front of the cage of the Kyuubi one last time. It thrashed and cursed me, but I paid it no mind. The closer I got to the gate the more frantic it became until it was foaming at the mouth. I simply took hold of the small paper that said seal and whispered Kai. Ripping the paper off, the gates flew open and I was pushed back into a wall across the room. I watched in horror as the voice of that black fox bounced off every wall and the Kyuubi howled in anger. The last thing I remember it saying before all of its essence was sucked into me was that it was betrayed by its own people. While saddened by any betrayal I couldn't feel too sorry for it since it ruined my life and showed no remorse because of it. Once I snapped out of my own mindscape, I saw Hikaru standing across the room, looking at me with curiosity and fear. I stepped forward and called out to him, and when he heard my voice he launched himself into my arms and began to cry. I soothed him as much as I could until I felt a foreign furriness wrap around us both. Looking around I saw that I had 9 red tails whipping around me. Snatching my son off the ground I ran into the bathroom and frantically looked in the mirror. My human ears were gone and my fangs were longer. Red ears sat atop my head and the tails whipped about, mirroring my confusion and horror. Suddenly I felt a weight on one and looked down to see it tickling Hikaru and making him laugh while he played with it. Oh, the mind of a child, to be able to see the good in such a thing. It warmed my heart and in the back of my mind, I felt happy since my son loved how I looked now. It made me cuddly, he said, and I couldn't deny him his logic. Walking back into the living room I saw the black fox sitting on its haunches, waiting for my inevitable questions. I carried my son with me and sat in my chair with him on my lap. I asked why I was bestowed with such an honor when I was a human, why was I the new Kyuubi? The answer was that I was noble and pure, I had suffered and I had endured, and that only one who could defeat the old Kyuubi was worthy of being the leader of the Vulpine. I took that in and suddenly I was bombarded with memories that were not mine. Visions of a golden throne and foxes running everywhere swept across my mind. The foxes were afraid of me and I was a terrible, powerful being. Asking what the visions meant, I was given the explanation that by absorbing the old Kyuubi, I must have taken more than power, I took his knowledge. Fearing for my son's life if I inherited his bloodlust as well, the black fox sighed, guessing what I was thinking by the look in my eyes, and told me that only memories and power were absorbed. Not traits and characteristics. I asked why I appeared as I did and was told that he didn't know. Perhaps it was because I was the first human turned demon, or because I subconsciously wanted to retain a part of my humanity. I took all this in and filed it away. I felt Hikaru playing with my tails again and smiled. I asked what would become of my son and was told that he was human. He would never be demon. I sighed in relief and asked if he carried over any of the old Kyuubi's traits, since he had whiskers. The black fox smiled and told me that I had awakened a new bloodline, one of power and fortitude. My descendants would be powerful at young ages, and they would be nearly invincible in battle due to a heightened regenerative state. I smiled even wider, knowing that out of all my turmoil, my son had a great gift and this was enough to ease my troubled heart slightly. Having all my troublesome questions about my and my son's well-being answered, I turned to my new advisor and asked what the Vulpine would need of me. My answer was that I would need to find a mate. One who was strong and beautiful and could help me in my days as ruler. I was to come to the realm of demons and rule wisely and with kindness. The old Kyuubi was a tyrant and they felt no loss in losing him. All they required was that I use my gifts as Uzumaki Naruto to make the Vulpine the greatest of all demon clans. I agreed wholeheartedly until I remembered the remark about a mate and I became crestfallen. Nobody would love a demon and I knew this from the bottom of my heart. I asked what would happen if I didn't find a mate and was told that I would be removed from power and killed. I needed a mate so that a lineage could be established. Hikaru was a human and no matter how powerful he was not immortal as I was now. This amazed me. I'm immortal. How then was I supposed to find a mate that would live as long as I? The black fox smiled and said that my mate would receive my mark and a measure of my power and immortality. She would be more powerful than the strongest cage, and her kits would be great and wonderful. But how was I to find such a woman when the one I loved with all my heart had just walked out on me? I was 20 when Sakura left me. The Black Fox said I had 5 years to find a mate or I would be removed from power. I nodded my head in understanding and realized I hadn't asked his name. He smiled and told me his name was Dinmaki. Hello to the both of you, Lord Naruto, Lady Ino. We have returned from our trip. Hikaru bounded across the floor and leapt into Naruto's arms and gave him a hug. Naruto returned it with some of his tails, which sent Hikaru into a giggle fit. Ino smiled at the heartwarming scene until she remembered their conversation and went wide-eyed at the implications. In a small voice she called out to Naruto, halting his and Hikaru's tickle fight. Naruto, are you saying that you need a mate or you'll die? Yes, that's what I'm saying. I have a little over 1 year left before the Vulpine Council of Elders comes to view my mate. Jinmaki here believes that you would be a most wonderful vixen, and so do I. Oh, a vixen am I? I thought I was your girlfriend and here I am just another vixen. Now Ino, don't be childish. This is serious. You've just found out my biggest secret. I'm a demon with a human child. I'm a ruler of a vast legion of foxes from another realm. I am Kyuubi now. Aren't you frightened? Why would I be frightened of my love? You've never been a demon to me, in mind or deed. Just because you physically are one doesn't mean you are in your heart. You'll always be Naruto to me. I love you for you. You treat me better than any man ever could and you're a wonderful father. And after hearing your story, I've made up my mind. Fearfully Naruto asked what decision she had made. I'm yours now and forever. Consider me your new queen, O mighty king of Bijou's. Now the only question is where to put that mark. Oh, I know. Naruto, in his bliss, leaned in wondering where she wanted his mark to be put. Jinmaki detected the teasing lilt in her voice however and readied himself for Naruto's downfall. You can just put it on my ass since you seem to like kissing it so much. Naruto just sat there with a stunned look on his face while Jinmaki and Hikaru died laughing at the stupid look on his face. Ino covered her mouth so she wouldn't giggle, but the dumbfounded look on his face was too much and she laughed long and hard. Naruto broke out of his gaze and fixed them all with a glare before a low growl caught in his throat, making them all stop. His teeth swept back in a sneer and his fangs were bared, his ears thrown back in anger, and his tails whipped around in a frenzy. They all gulped thinking they had sent him over the edge when suddenly the sneer turned into a frighteningly familiar smirk. So you make fun of the mighty king of the foxes, eh? Not the brightest mortals around, are you? And you, my faithful retainer, I thought you had more common sense. Prepare yourselves for my wrath. Ino stood there stupidly, but Hikaru and Jinmaki yelped and tried to make it to the door. They knew what his wrath meant and tried to get away. Suddenly a tail encircled them both and brought them back into the center of the room. Ino found herself laying on her back beside Hikaru and Jinmaki, who were desperately trying to get loose. Naruto stood over them all and then leant forward and crawled over the top of Ino, who began to breathe heavy under his intense glare. Now comes your punishment, you three. You brought this on yourselves, remember. Hikaru and Jinmaki began to squeal and yelp and Ino turned her head to each side to see them being tickled mercilessly by the remaining 6 tails. She suddenly felt her head jerked back forward to be brought under the gaze of the severely smirking Naruto. And as for you, my queen. Her eyes jerked wide when instead of being punished she felt herself being kissed deeply by her lover and new king. Sighing into the kiss, she threw her arms around her neck and never heard the noise levels beside her drop as Naruto lost concentration and began to kiss her with more desire. The only thing that brought them out of their revelry was an ew from Hikaru and a throat-clearing sound from Jinmaki. Grinning sheepishly, they both made their way to their feet and blushed a bright red. Neither Hikaru or Jinmaki minded really, but there were other pressing matters than seeing who had the strongest tongue. Now then that the young ones have their hormones under control, we can continue. Lady Ino, are you certain that you love Lord Naruto with all your heart? Will you stand beside him through the years? Can you leave your humanity and mortality behind for a lifetime of servitude to your new king and mate? I am sure. I love him and I want to be happy. He can make me happy and if giving up my humanity is what brings happiness then so be it. But what will happen to me when I'm made his mate? Hikaru, leave the room and do not eavesdrop. I must speak with them alone. Now that the boy is gone I must tell you some things. I do not know how this will affect you. You will be only the second human to become a demon and I don't know what will happen to you physically. On a mental and spiritual level, you will be able to feel how your mate feels and you will feel a deepening of love for him. You will be able to communicate with each other telepathically due to your bond and this will be of great importance should either of you ever be in trouble. I don't know anything else. Will the mark hurt? Where will it be? Well, unfortunately, no matter how funny it might have been, it won't be on your ass. That would be awkward for both of you seeing as Lord Naruto has to bite you for it to take form. The neck is the easiest place since you have to bite him as well once your transformation is complete to seal the deal. Now get hopping you two. I'm sure Hikaru wants to play with his new mother. New mother? But we're not married yet. I can't be his mother. Oh please. You will be mated on a level more deep than a mere marriage by law. And you have been more of a mother in 6 months to that boy than that Sakura was his whole life. Now bite her, Lord Naruto. Naruto stepped forward and gripped Ino by the shoulders. She was afraid, but when Naruto uttered "I love you" in her ear, all her fears went away. Baring his fangs, he bit into her neck at the base where her shoulder met, and she shivered with delight. Instead of pain, she felt warmth, love, and desire. Naruto stepped back to watch his handiwork and was astounded to see what was happening. Ino stood bathed in a white light and she curled up on the floor with a whimper. Naruto went to move to her but was stopped by Jinmaki shaking his head. After a few more moments the light faded and there on the floor lay Ino, transformed. Her human ears were gone and were replaced by purple ears on top of her head that wiggled back and forth, catching sound. Her one tail waved behind her and when Naruto knelt to pick her up, it entwined with one of his. He smiled at this and lifted her lips up to see the enlarged fangs. To him, she was absolute beauty, magnified 1,000,000 times. Setting her on the couch, he put her head in his lap and stroked her ears, earning him a contented purr. Jinmaki smiled at the scene and his heart was lifted. Here before him was his new king and queen and he couldn't be happier. They would rule with fairness and surely the Vulpine would prosper. He walked back over to the door and let Hikaru back in. The little boy was astounded to see that Ino had a tail and ears like his daddy and nearly squealed with delight when he went to grab it and it slapped him playfully. Ino felt someone stroking her ears and tail and woke with a contented sigh. She looked up into Naruto's face and smiled. She felt great, powerful, and she could hear, see, and smell everything with a clarity never known to her. Sitting upright she moved into the bedroom and stood in front of Naruto's full-length mirror. She admired her royal purple tail and ears and pulled at her lips to see her new fangs. She smiled and thought, damn, I look drop-dead gorgeous. He'll have a harder time saying no to me now. This thought made her giggle and she walked back into the living room and plopped down between Naruto and Hikaru. So, what do you think, Ino? Are you happy with your new look and power? Oh yes. But I feel we're forgetting something. You are. You must bite him now. Complete the union. Obtain your rightful place as queen, my lady. Ino leaned over and jerked Naruto's head down by the hair. She whispered in his ear. If it felt orgasmic to me as a human, imagine how it's going to feel to a demon. His eyes bugged at this, and before he could protest to a change of location, she launched herself at his neck and bit as hard as she could. The flood of emotions he felt was nothing compared to the overwhelming sense of desire and need for her at the moment. She released her hold on his hair and they both watched in fascination as a fox head-shaped seal appeared on both their necks at the junction where they were bitten. Naruto shuddered at her touch and pulled back quickly lest he do something in front of Hikaru he might regret. They both turned and saw Hikaru and Jinmaki bowed low on the floor. My king and my queen. As the first of the Vulpine to acknowledge you, let it be my pleasure to inform the council of your decision. They had high hopes for you and I'm sure your choice of mate will meet more than their approval, but the approval of all Vulpine. Lady Ino, you are the first to ever have royal purple fur, a color most befitting a queen. I shall return shortly. You three enjoy your newfound family. Ino smiled at this and turned to Hikaru, who raised his head and met her gaze. Well, are you going to just sit there or are you going to give your mother a hug, son? With tears in his eyes, Hikaru launched himself at Ino and wrapped his arms around her neck, sobbing happily. She held him close and wrapped her tail around him. Suddenly she felt a familiar pressure and saw that Naruto had joined in and wrapped his tails around them all, bringing them close officially as a family. Ino looked up and grabbed the back of his head, pulling him in for yet another kiss. She smiled into it and a tear escaped her eye. I have all of eternity to spend with my mate. May this feeling of love never end. Jinmaki appeared shortly and informed them that the council was overjoyed and that seeing as how they had given him 5 years to find a mate, that letting the new family have a year to themselves was not such a bad thing. Everyone was happy and a feeling of bliss overran them all. Hikaru finally had a mother again and Naruto and Ino had someone to love. Alas, the feeling of security cannot last forever and even though one group accepts you wholeheartedly doesn't mean everyone else will. Later that night while lying in their bed, after an army of clones had moved all of Ino's belongings from her apartment to her new home, Ino sighed after another round of demonic lovemaking. While no different than any humans, the sheer stamina they possessed made it so that the unthinkable was possible. Once they had collapsed back onto the pillows and Ino made herself comfortable on her favorite pillow, Naruto's chest, she sighed contentedly and intertwined their tails once again. Suddenly a feeling of apprehension overtook her and she looked up fearfully at Naruto. Sensing her discomfort, he put his arm around her and drew her in closer, asking what was wrong. We've forgotten one critical thing now, Naruto. Well, I'm happy for us both, we have a difficult task ahead of us. Yeah, I know. We have a whole legion to rule and an empire to raise. Not to mention raising Hikaru and starting a family all to ourselves. Ugh, if I'd known what being king meant. No Naruto. That's all important too, but this has me afraid for real. What is it? We have to talk to our parents and tell them what happened. Then we have to tell everyone else since we'll be around less. Okay, we'll talk to your parents and everybody else, but mine are dead, remember? I don't have anyone to report to. Oh yes you do. Your mother and father will be very interested to see you've become a demon and are mated to me, another demon. And who are my mother and father, pray tell? Tsunade and Iruka. Not even a cricket chirp was heard for several moments as the bedroom was filled with a sickening silence. Suddenly it broke when Naruto's small voice bounced off every wall. Oh shit. Chapter 6. Okay, I can do this, I can do this, he can't do this. Naruto, stop fidgeting. Your tails keep hitting me and it's getting annoying. Look, all we gotta do is tell my parents and Iruka-sensei and Tsunade-sama that we're demons now and rulers of a vast kingdom. It'll be easy. Naruto just stared at her like she'd grown another head. After much whining, he had finally fallen asleep last night only for reality to hit him like a sledgehammer to the nuts the next morning. He had found a mate and he couldn't be happier, but now he had to inform Tsunade that he wouldn't be around much after the coming year. He'd have to go to his new domain and make decisions and alliances, fight for his people, basically be responsible for everything. The mere thought hurt his head and he began to whine piteously again until Ino whacked him over the head with his notebook that she had been reading again. Seriously, who would have thought his mate would have been into naughty stories? The sound of the door flying open brought both of them out of their stupors and Ino quickly hid the offending notebook from Hikaru's eyes. The blonde and pink-haired boy bounded across the floor and springboarded onto the bed, landing in between his father and his new mother, snuggling their tails. The feeling of affection from the nuzzling of her tail brought out motherly instincts in Ino and she grabbed the boy and sat him on her lap, hugging him. Well, good morning, sunshine. How was your night? It was good, Miss Ino. I always sleep good when Jinmaki is around. That's good. And what did I tell you about calling me Miss Ino? You can call me Mom, okay? Mom. There, that's better. Now then Naruto, we're going and that's final. We're doing it today because daddy doesn't have any missions and mom's not working the flower shop. Iruka can find a substitute and I'm pretty sure Tsunade will cancel any appointments she has to hear this. We're going to see grandma. Yay. I love visiting grandma, she always gets me snacks and presents. And she beats up daddy and they're always funny. Ino cocked an eyebrow and looked at Naruto, who rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. She says I have no respect for authority and she wants her grandson to grow up respectful. I don't know what she's talking about though. I'm respectful, right? Silence greeted him as all parties present, Jinmaki had come in after Hikaru and sat at the end of the bed, just gave him incredulous looks. Right? Oh come on. I'm not that bad. And besides that, now I am authority. That doesn't mean you aren't disrespectful, sweetie. In fact, I'd say that you deserve more punishment than Tsunade-sama gives you. She's pretty lenient with you, you know. Yeah, well you have never been hit by her either. Touché. But I don't think it hurts as bad as you say it does, you big baby. Tell you what, next time she hits you I'll kiss it better. How's that sound? Hikaru, of course, made an ew noise at the notion of kissing that earned him a bonk on the top of his head from his mother. He pouted and crossed his arms, causing Ino to giggle and kiss the top of his head. Now Hikaru, don't be such a baby. It doesn't become you. Go get dressed, we're leaving soon. As soon as the boy was out the door, Jinmaki stepped forward for any orders. Naruto finally noticed him and gave him a small smile. Jinmaki, I think it's time to retrieve the scroll. We've been dormant as a race for too long. It's time we joined the world of summons. And there are 3 people who will sign right off the bat. Jinmaki started to bow low, but Naruto leapt off the bed and stopped him by grabbing his head and turning his face back up. Confusion swept over the fox's face until Naruto gave his reason. Jinmaki, never bow to me again. I may be king, but I have always been a humble person. You have been my most trusted friend and advisor these past 3 years. I consider you my equal and a dear friend. Never bow in front of me. Stand beside me as I rule. Jinmaki looked at his ruler with awe. The old Kyuubi had instilled a sense of fear and respect for power during his rule. If you disobeyed or disrespected you died. But now here he was being told that he was seen as an equal and important part of the court. Tears of joy sprang to his eyes and he laughed in happiness. Lord Naruto, you have no idea how happy I am that you are king. Truly we will prosper under you and Lady Ino. I will honor your wishes and I shall never bow before you, but I shall always revere Yami friend. His reward was a genuine smile from Naruto and a rub between the ears. While the 2 males were enjoying their bonding experience, Ino sat on the bed and watched with pride. This is what made her mate so special. He could befriend anyone, make anyone feel special, make something from nothing. He had that one intangible that made him a good ruler and even greater friend. Kindness. Seeing that the two weren't moving and she really wanted to get this over with, she coughed into her hand until they noticed her. With a nod of his head, Jinmaki disappeared to retrieve the fox summoning scroll. Naruto stood and stretched, gaining an appreciative eye from Ino. Noticing her eyeing him up, he sauntered over to her side of the bed and leaned in like he was going to kiss her. She closed her eyes and waited until she felt his hand envelop her face, scrunching her cheeks into a pucker. Opening her eyes, she saw a playful grin and even more playful glint in his eyes. "I think you had enough last night, princess. Now get dressed and we'll do this while my nerve is up." She stood and made towards the closet while Naruto straightened the covers back out. While fluffing the pillows, he found himself wondering what he was forgetting. Suddenly, it came to him. "Ino, didn't you hide my notebook under your pillow?" The reply of "yeah" came from the deep recesses of the closet. Then a "why?" "Well, I can't find it, and if you don't have it then." Hikaru. The procession of the Uzumakis down the streets of Konoha was a spectacle to behold. They turned heads everywhere even though they weren't trying to. It's just when you see three people and a fox, laughing and enjoying the day like a family, it's a little unsettling. Not to mention that they all look hedrigal. The two adults had an almost ethereal glow about them, and warmth was emanating from them. The small boy, riding on the back of a Great Dane-sized fox, was laughing happily. But what stunned most, aside from their attitudes, was the clothing all were wearing. Naruto, much to the delight of women and chagrin of men, was decked out in clothes befitting a man of status. His black slacks were immaculate and fell over his polished leather boots. His shirt of orange silk still hasn't given up on that ridiculous color, had black flames licking a line across his chest. His battle coat flowed majestically behind him and gave him an aura of power. The hit I-8 of the Toad Sennin adorned his brow and his smile exuded happiness and his eyes shone with power. His mate walking beside him was the object of much envy and hatred. The women were all still jealous of her for stealing Naruto from bachelorhood, giving them little to no chance to have him since he seemed so happy with her. The streets were almost flooding with drool from the males of Konoha as she passed by, hanging on the arm of her king. Instead of her normal black shirt and skirt, she had opted to spice things up a little with color. Digging as far into her wardrobe as possible, she had come out with a blood-red skirt, a black shirt emblazoned with a gold-stitched fox, and her shoes were the heeled sandals with fishnet leggings. Her birthday present from Naruto was proudly on display. A royal purple battle coat, fitted to her size, with the kanji for queen on the back. Her hair pulled back into the familiar ponytail with a diamond scrunchie, nobody could accuse Naruto of being cheap when it came to his mate, and her hit I-8 around her waist. They made quite the pair. Hikaru was perhaps the most normally dressed out of the three, even though he too was dressed for success. Decked out in khaki slacks with black sandals and a black button-up shirt with a Konoha leaf symbol and silver thread on the back. He was a very sharply dressed little boy. Jinmaki merely plodded along, seemingly oblivious to all the stares they were getting. On the inside he was swearing about having to lug around a heavy Hikaru and wishing they could have just teleported to the Hokage office. But Ino wanted to show off her new family and insisted on walking through town. Curse his loyalty to his master. Thank the stars, they were finally there. Naruto breathed deep before opening the door to Tsunade's office. This was the final plunge, letting everyone dear to him in on his secret. Although now it was more than just his secret, Ino was at risk too. There she sat in all her glory. Head on the table, drool coming from her mouth and her breasts starting to pop slightly out of her top. Ino immediately clapped her hand over Hikaru's eyes, lest he see his grandmother's goodies. Naruto was torn between waking her up, an immediate death sentence in Konoha, and leaving and coming back later. Suddenly he heard a low chuckle from one of the high back chairs in front of her desk. Slipping quietly up behind it, he peered over the back and saw Jiraiya, his former master, giggling perversely and making notes in his infamous notebook. A wry smile crossed Naruto's face. At least he wouldn't have to look all over for the hermit. 2 birds, 1 stone, and he even got to see the old man put through the wall. Good times. Crossing his arms on the back of the chair, he spoke in a voice loud enough to wake Tsunade. "You know, Hiro-sennin, I thought I was the author of the books now. Your research really is nothing more than pervertedness." Tsunade immediately shot up and glared at the toad hermit, who began to whimper in fear at his punishment. An arm shot out, a cry rang out, and Jiraiya was embedded in the wall across the room while Tsunade tried to calm herself down. Now standing, her shirt had loosened even more and her tatas were spilling out. Ino had to speak up since Naruto's tongue was sufficiently tied, not that it was possible to speak with all the blood rushing to his face. "Tsunade-sama. Please cover yourself." Tsunade looked down and saw that her girdles were bouncing freely and flushed redder than Ino's skirt. Hooking them back into the shirt and straightening herself out, she gave Naruto the evil eye. "What the hell are you gawking at, brat?" Seeing she wasn't going to get an answer from her stunned son, she turned to Ino and gave an apologetic grin. Finally shaking herself of her blush, she saw Hikaru in Ino's grasp with his eyes covered. She smiled seeing her grandson and opened her arms. "What are you waiting for, sweetie? Come give your grandma a hug." Hikaru broke from Ino's grip and ran to Tsunade, who picked him up and enveloped him in a bone-crushing hug. It had been a long time since she had seen him except in passing, and she missed the little boy's bright smile. She sighed in contentment. He was so much like his father when he was younger and wasn't burdened with so much responsibility. She turned back to see Ino and raised her eyebrow at the Kunoichi's attire. If she didn't know better, she was imitating Naruto and looking damn good doing it. Hearing a groan behind her, she hazarded a glance to see Naruto peeling Jiraiya off the wall and helping him back into a chair. Noticing everything was as it should be, she motioned for Naruto and Ino to have a seat while she held Hikaru in her lap. "Alright, now that the gang's all here, what gives me the honor of seeing you, besides a long overdue visit from my grandson?" Naruto took a deep breath and let it out slowly. This was gonna be hard. A squeeze on his hand let him know that Ino was right beside him. Giving her a weak smile, he turned his attention back to Tsunade. "Ba-chan, I have a secret to tell you. But not only you, I need to tell those closest to me. Hiro-sen's already here, so that just leaves Iruka-sensei and Shizune-chan. I'd like you to call Ino's parents too, since she's involved in this. I won't say a word until they all get here. What about Kakashi? Sakura and Sasuke? Don't you want them here too?" Naruto's face darkened and Ino could feel a cold chill at the mention of those names. She was finding out firsthand just how powerful the link between them was. She sent a mental soothing to him and saw him visibly relax. Tsunade 2X teammates are definitely out of the question. You know that. As for Kakashi, I don't want him here either. I tried to be forgiving in the past, but the more I think about how he treated me while training me, the more upset and angry I get. True, he showed me the secret behind shadow clones, but beyond that and tree climbing, I learned jack shit from him. I haven't spoken to him in years and he's made no effort to speak to me at all. I'm through with him. Tsunade frowned at this but understood. Naruto had tried to forgive and forget, but it takes two to tango, and Kakashi wasn't dancing to the same tune. He showed little to no remorse to blatantly favoring Sasuke in the past, and even now could be seen hanging out around the future Hokage. She cringed at this thought, and her chakra flared just a little, but she snapped out of it when Hikaru pulled one of her pigtails, getting her attention. "Yes, little one? What is it?" "Grandma, you need to get Mama's parents and Iruka-sensei in here soon. Daddy has a big secret and it'll make you laugh." "Mama's parents? Do you mean Sa?" "No. He means Ino's. That'll be explained too. Call Shizune and have her fetch them, then come in here herself. I'll put up a sound barrier." While Shizune was playing messenger girl, Naruto was busy putting up a sound barrier, Ino was chatting with Tsunade about her relationship with Naruto, and Jiraiya was playing with Hikaru while Jinmaki watched with a disapproving eye. He liked Jiraiya well enough, it was just that the man's idea of fun was trying to convince Hikaru to yank Tsunade's top off. Hikaru adamantly refused, saying he didn't want to see old lady boobies and sent Jiraiya into peals of laughter, earning him another trip into the plaster. Finally, after what seemed like eternity, everyone was gathered and chairs were offered. Naruto and Ino declined theirs and stood side by side, holding hands. After greeting Ino's parents, he was on really good terms with them and they adored Hikaru, not having any grandchildren of their own yet. They hoped Naruto could remedy that. He coughed to get attention and began his story. "Okay, so you all know about the Kyuubi. Well, I'm here to tell you the rest of that story. And that's how I became a demon. So any questions?" Voices were immediately thrown everywhere. Persistent questions milling in the air until a very loud shout from Tsunade silenced everyone. She glared at them all and noticed that when Naruto said he was not only a demon but the Kyuubi, she had held Hikaru even tighter. She was relieved that the little boy was still human but was still unsure that Naruto's story was true. "Show us. Prove that you are the Kyuubi." "Saiba-chan, I'm still Naruto. Kyuubi is a title. I'm a king of foxes now. And as for proof." He dropped the hinge and everyone's jaws hit the floor. Hikaru giggled when he saw their faces and looked up into his grandmother's eyes to see her completely speechless. He leaned up and planted a kiss on her cheek. "Daddy looks funny when he's furry. Doesn't he, Grandma?" Tsunade snapped out of her stupor and looked down at him with a grin. "Well dear, it's certainly better than the other times I've seen him with tails. Now hop down so I can examine him." Hikaru complied and Tsunade stood before Naruto and grabbed one of his tails harshly, causing him to yelp in pain. "Hey, watch it. Those things are sensitive, you know. Be gentle." She nodded and proceeded to pet the tails and moved to his whiskered cheeks, stroking them, causing him to purr. She looked back at Ino's mother and saw a familiar glint in her eyes, one often need to rub the cute furry thing. She motioned her over and forced Naruto to his knees so she could examine his ears. Ino's mother, heretofore known as Yuka, for lack of a better name, sidled over and began to scratch an ear, while Tsunade scratched the other. A blissful smile came over Naruto's face, his tongue rolled out one side, and his tails wagged happily, some thumping the two women and sending them into giggle fits while the men laughed hard and long. Here before them was a demon lord reduced to a mere pulp at the mere scratch of an ear. Ino laughed in spite of herself, seeing her mate so serene. Then she remembered the second part of their visit. "Mom, it's good to see that you accept Naruto as a demon because that's the second part of our calling you here. As you all know, I've been going out with Naruto for 6 months now and I couldn't be happier. I just recently found out about his being a demon and to tell you the truth I didn't care. I love him. Plain and simple. And now for my part of the secret." But that she dropped her own hinge and revealed her royal purple tail and ears. Gasps were heard around the room until they heard Hikaru giggle once again while playing with Ino's tails. "Mama looks pretty with a tail, doesn't she?" Yuka smiled at the innocence of the little boy. He was a natural icebreaker. Any negative thoughts about Ino's transformation were thrown aside when it was revealed that, yes, Ino was more beautiful with her new appendages. They made her look otherworldly and more goddess-like. She walked to her daughter and along with Inoichi, gave her a hug. "Oh sweetie, you do look lovely. Now care to tell us why you have a tail?" Thus began Ino's tale of how she became queen of the foxes. Eyes went wide and mouths opened at the tale, and when she told of how she and Naruto were now mates, Yuka threw herself at Naruto and cried into his chest, confusing the young demon. "Thank God you two finally got together officially. I thought Ino was never going to get married the way she was going. And now I find out that not only is she married, she's a queen. Calling her princess when she was little seems appropriate now. Of course I expect grandchildren and I'm sure Tsunade-sama wants more as well." "Mom? You're babbling. Be still. Now then, we have a more pressing matter than grandbabies at the moment. Naruto only has a year left in this plane before he has to go the domain of the foxes and rule there. There are certain things we must accomplish before that. Denmaki. Bring forth the scroll." Denmaki waddled forth with a giant scroll on his back and flipped it into the air, letting it land and unroll with flair before stepping back into the shadows of the room. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Hikaru, and Ino stepped forth. "I have a gift for all of you. This, Tsunade, Hokage of Konohagakure, is the summon scroll for foxes, my gift to Konoha. You four shall be the signers and holders of the scroll until Hikaru comes of age, where it will be passed down through his family through the generations, each becoming the new fox Zenin. Hikaru, as my son, you shall be the first to sign. Sign your name and your own blood and put a handprint at the bottom. The rest of you follow him." And so it came that they each signed the scroll, and once done, it rolled shut and poofed out of existence. Naruto smiled at all of them and clapped his hands. "Well, now that that part of the business is out of the way, I would like to say thank you to all of you for accepting mine and Ino's love and status as royalty in a demon realm. Now each of you summon a fox. Hikaru, Jinmaki is your personal summon so he won't need to be summoned. He'll be with you forever. Now the rest of you, no seals needed, no chakra needed, this is my gift. A summon without burden. Now do it." 3 cries of Kuchius no Jutsu rang out in the office, and with 3 bursts of flame, a yellow fox, a red fox, and a green fox arrived in the office, bowing low to Naruto and then to Ino. The green fox, larger than the rest and having 4 tails, spoke for the rest. "Ah, Lord Naruto, such a pleasant surprise to meet you. I am Jiro, the red one is Akane, and the golden one is Isane. We are honored to meet you all, Lord Jiraiya, Lady Tsunade, and of course Queen Ino. How may we serve you?" "I simply had them call you here to test the contract, Jiro. I am happy that you approve of my choice of scroll bearers. My son is partnered to Jinmaki. I myself will be the boss summons and shall handle all matters in the human world accordingly if need be. I don't want to put a strain on our people." Hearing Naruto speak with such regal bearing astounded everyone except Ino, it just made her want to ravage him, and he chuckled nervously at their looks. Tsunade was the first to recover. "What do you mean boss summon? Just how powerful are you? Remember that it was my chakra that held the Kyuubi at bay. Since I'm the new Kyuubi and am a fusion of my power and his, that makes me a total of a little over 18 tails of power. Of course 9 is as high as you can go, but I'm the most powerful being alive right now. Too bad I was shut out from being Hokage, huh? No one would ever attack us with a fox demon for a leader with near limitless amounts of chakra." Iruka finally found his voice after absorbing the fact that the boy he thought of as a son was now a summon, the most powerful no less. "Naruto, how did all this come to be? Why do you always seem to be in the midst of trouble? Why do you have to leave us?" Naruto crossed to the man and enveloped him in a hug. "Iruka-sensei, I'm not leaving forever. As a Biju I have the power to come and go as I please in this world. But I have other responsibilities now and I can't ignore them. In a way, I got my wish. I'm a leader and I'm acknowledged. I'm happy. I have a beautiful mate and a wonderful son. You guys are my family. Let Konoha be stupid and resentful of me. When the time comes, I'll still protect them. Let Sasuke be Hokage, I'm something more. I have what his precious master always wanted. And what's that, Naruto? Everlasting life. I'm immortal now, Iruka-sensei. And so is Ino. We'll protect Konoha forever or until we deem them unworthy of our protection. But as long as our family is happy here, we will remain. Shizune came forward and enveloped him in a hug and a kiss on the cheek. I'm happy for you, Naruto-kun. You finally got what your heart desires. And all it cost you was your mortality. I'm proud of you, little brother. Thank you, sister. I love you too. Inoichi and Yuka came next. Naruto, you have no idea how happy I am that my little girl chose you over the Uchiha she used to crush on. Daddy. Now pumpkin, I'm just teasing. Ahem, Naruto, if you ever hurt my little girl, demon or not, I'll castrate you and then kill you, clear. Crystal, sir. Good. Inoichi slapped him on the back and was surprised to see he didn't budge an inch. Yuka then made her way forward and enveloped him in a motherly hug and whispered in his ear. I want grandbabies by the end of the year or you're dead, mister. Mom? What? How did you? Oh, that's right, super hearing. Now then, what about a wedding? We're already mates by demon law, I don't think we need anything else. I don't think so. My baby girl is getting married in a church, and that's final. There's so much to prepare. Invitations, dress, bridesmaids, ooh. And with that squeal the girls launched into a frenzy, leaving the males confused and slightly fearful for the future. Naruto leaned over to Inoichi and whispered in his ear. Hey, this wedding thing isn't going to hurt, is it? I mean, how hard could it be? Ever been kicked in the balls, kid? Yeah, why? It's gonna hurt like that, except forever. Aw damn. The men all cringed at the thought of a wedding and stood forlorn until Naruto turned and went to retrieve his new family. Unbeknownst to him, the older men all had predatory smiles on their faces. Bachelor parties are always so much fun. Getting back home was easier than getting to the Hokage Tower. After inviting her mother and father over for dinner and threatening Naruto so that he invited the rest of the party, they simply teleported back home and everyone collapsed on the couch. Hikaru, exhausted from playing with the older men all day, was asleep in Ino's arms while she played with his hair, trying to get it to straighten out, which much to her dismay, was like trying to straighten a coiled spring. Naruto was stroking the fur of an exhausted Jinmaki. Making that many trips to the Fox domain in one day was tiring even for him. Both Naruto and Ino sighed at the same time and looked lovingly at each other. Let's get these guys to bed and hit the hay. I'm bushed. But that they picked up their respective bundles and made their way forward. After changing Hikaru into his pajamas and flopping Jinmaki onto a pillow, they made their way to their bedroom. Not even bothering with bedclothes, they simply fell into bed nude and wrapped their arms and tails around each other, sighing happily in contentment, too exhausted to do anything strenuous. To Ino it felt so good to just lay there with no expectation of doing anything other than feeling comfortable. It was still an odd feeling, since all the guys before Naruto expected something every night. She smiled into his shoulder and licked his mark, making him shudder. He looked at her with a raised eyebrow. Otherworldly stamina or not, he was still tired. Don't worry, dear, I just wanted to see your reaction. I like making you jump. Keeps you on your toes. Now then, why did you want me to sign the scroll? Because when I leave, you're staying here in the human world. What? I don't think I heard you right. My place is beside you as queen. Your place is here beside Hikaru as his mother. I'm leaving him in your capable hands, and when he enters the academy I want you to be his jounin instructor. I'll help you, of course. And I'll be home every night and at least 2 days a week. This is still my home after all. But Hikaru is human and can't come with us. I need you to take care of him while I can't. He leaned over and bit her mark, earning a sharp breath and lustful moan. Come on, babe. I'll make it worth your while. Ino glared at him for a moment and then smirked. Bloody cheating bastard. That's not fair, biting my mark. What if I bit your? You won't if you know what's good for you. Oh really? Why's that? I outrank you, here and there. You bite me and I'll demote you, Tal. Damn, you're still a one-tail so I can't do much there. Ah, I know. I'll make you babysit for all the new fox mothers. That doesn't sound so bad. I like babies. Foxes tend to have litters of up to 4 or more, and there are literally thousands of demonesses in our kingdom. She looked up off his shoulder to see the fox-like grin he was displaying and scowled before biting his neck hard, causing him to moan loud and squirm. Feeling that he was ready for a round, she smirked and rolled over. Good night, dear. I have a headache tonight. You evil little bitch. Chapter 7. The silence in the air was deafening until the clink of a dropped fork broke it. Ino stared at her mate and narrowed her eyes in disbelief. What the hell do you mean you don't know anything about weddings? You were married once, weren't you? Head nodded in agreement and others voiced their opinions on the matter. Naruto just sighed and wondered why he had agreed to this dinner date with his new family. Ino's parents were dumbstruck and the looks from Tsunade and the others wasn't helping him any. Putting his hands to his temples, he rubbed them trying to make the headache go away. Ino, I was married. That's true. But I never had a wedding. Sakura was pregnant with Hikaru by a couple of months and didn't want to have a wedding. And Tsunade should know this since she was the one who signed the papers. He glared at her pointedly and Tsunade took that moment to knock her sake back and avoid eye contact. Looking away from his mother for the moment, he locked eyes with Ino's parents. Yuka had tears in her eyes and Inoichi had a stupid look on his face. You mean to tell all of us that you have never been in a wedding? Never said vows. Never gotten to eat wedding cake? No. What does it matter anyway? As long as we love one another, what does the wedding matter? A strong wave of fear overcame him at that moment and he saw that all the women were staring at him with intent to kill. His ears lay back on his head and he began to whimper. Inoichi clapped a hand on his back and Jiraiya did the same. Naruto, you don't understand. The wedding isn't for the both of you. It's for Ino. Women have a built-in need to mark what is theirs and a wedding is their way of showing you off and saying this is mine. Hands off. Sorry kid, but if you don't do it, you die. Naruto sighed and put his head in his hands. Why him? He was Kyuubi, lord of all foxes. Why did he have to do something he didn't want to do? Oh yeah, his mate was evil incarnate and would make his life a living hell. Now he knew why Shikamaru called her troublesome all the time. What the hell did you just say, Naruto? All attention snapped to Ino and quizzical looks were given in her direction. Naruto raised an eyebrow. He hadn't said anything out loud, did he? He turned to Jiraiya and gave him a questioning look. Jiraiya shrugged and looked back at Ino. What do you mean by that? Naruto didn't say anything out loud. Yeah, I only thought that. I didn't speak out loud. Jinmaki did say that our link was strong. Let's test drive this. Hey Ino, here's what I plan on doing to you tonight. The only thing they saw was Ino turn blood red and fall out of her chair, a small smile on her face and blood dripping from her nose, her tail wagging happily. After the shock wore off and Yuka and Tsunade had helped Ino back into her chair, she looked at Naruto and blushed again. Naruto just raised his eyebrows and smirked. I thought so. You read my mind and didn't even know it. Did you like my ideas, dear? I thought so. Now then, it appears that Ino can read my mind. Looks like I won't have any privacy at all for quite some time. Oh well, moving on. No, I have never been in a wedding, I have no idea what to do in one, and I'm pretty much useless at this point. Just plan what you want and tell me what time to show up. Ino looked like she was about to burst into tears. But Naruto, I wanted us to do this together. We have to. It'll be our only wedding and I want your input. We need to pick colors, arrangements. Fine, just make everything you can orange and I'll be good. You know what? You're right. I think between me, Mom, Shizune and Lady Tsunade we can get the job done. Oh my god, why did I think he would want something other than orange? I heard that. Ino glanced across the table at him with wide eyes. You heard me? Yes, I did. It appears we can converse without actually speaking. A side effect of your family's jutsu, no doubt. Oh really? Well then, allow me to return the favor and tell you what I'm going to do to you on our wedding night. Everyone was looking back and forth from Ino to Naruto since neither had spoken for several minutes. Suddenly, Naruto flushed red and passed out, muttering things about evil and whipped cream. Jiraiya's infamous lecherous grin spread across his face and he immediately figured out what was going on. He smirked at Ino, sending a shiver down her spine. So, care to tell everyone what you and the brat have been telepathically telling each other? I can make several educated guesses, but… He never got to finish since Tsunade sent him into the wall and Yuka walked over to kick him in the balls. Shizune would have done something, but all the fun things were taken. She just pouted in her chair. Haruka cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. I believe we were here to have a nice calm normal dinner. And also to discuss wedding plans. Please stay on track. I have enough problems being the only adult in a room full of children, don't make me the only adult in a room full of adults. Tsunade stuck her tongue out at him and crossed her arms in a huff. Fine, spoil sport. We'll get back on track. But you have to arrange everything on Naruto's side. Haruka groaned and covered his face. That was brilliant, Haruka. You walked right into that one. Konoha had been a fairly quiet town since Naruto had matured. Sure, there was the occasional prankster that tried to be an upstart, but no one would ever match Uzumaki Naruto for sheer quality. This particular morning, however, was punctuated by high-pitched squeals and several grunts and groans. The reason? The girls, Ino, Tsunade, Shizune and Yuka, were dragging the guys, Naruto, Haruka, Jiraiya, Inoichi, and unfortunately for him, Hikaru, around town to make arrangements for the wedding. Naruto wanted Ichiraku's to cater but was immediately shot down by all the women and even AM refused when she heard about it, citing that a wedding deserved more proper fare and sent Naruto into whimpers again. Hikaru merely looked around in awe at the whirlwind that was forming around him. His mother was so excited she was nearly hyperventilating and his father was about to have a conniption fit. He didn't know what to think. Ino finally got to the shop she wanted after making everyone taste several wedding cakes, no one complained about that, and picking out invitations and bouquets could have been done at any time, but they were passing her parents' shop, so why not? The finest clothing store in Konoha was dead ahead, bringing excited squeals from the women and groans from the men. The girls were excited to try on dresses, the men were ready to bolt in a heartbeat. Even little Hikaru was fidgeting badly. But the Let's Go Ino led the charge into the shop. Naruto sighed heavily. He had already been dressed up in no less than 5 tuxes and 13 kimonos. He was tired, he was hungry, and he was starting to get agitated with Jiraiya. The old man seemed to thrive off of seeing the girls in tight-fitting clothes and trying to convince Hikaru to do things to them when they weren't looking. Haruka was off in his own little world and Inoichi was just as excited as the women. It wasn't every day your daughter got married, he reasoned. Ino had finally gotten around to trying on dresses and he wasn't allowed to see her until she had found the perfect one. He groaned, thinking of how much this was going to cost. True, most of the time the bride's parents paid for most, but Naruto was nothing if not self-sufficient. He refused to allow them to shoulder the amount alone. Not like with his book sales, he wouldn't have the money back in a month. And to see Ino happy, it was all worth it. Giggling and cries of "no, that's not quite right either" rang out for what seemed like hours. Naruto had fallen asleep on a bench and Hikaru had laid out lengthwise on it with his head resting on his father's leg. Jiraiya had resigned himself to reading a magazine, hoping to see a little cleavage, and Haruka was dozing in a chair. This is the scene Ino walked in on. She looked at Naruto and Hikaru and awed, as did the rest of the troupe. The two of them looked adorable in that position, but Ino had a goal in mind. With a low to him, all the men woke up. Naruto barely opened his eyes and cut them in the direction of the noise and closed them again. Realizing what, or rather who, was standing there, they immediately snapped back open and his neck damn near broke trying to swivel to see her. Only one word came to mind when he saw her. Beautiful. Ino blushed and tried to cover her cheeks to hide it, but her mother wrenched her hands away and threw them down to her sides. Ino quickly clasped them in front of her and looked down in embarrassment. She had meant to come out and look extremely sexy for Naruto, but he had blown that out of the water by calling her beautiful. Naruto took his mate's embarrassment that she didn't like the dress and was forced to come out in it. He scowled and stood up. Walking to her, he circled her like a hungry animal and looked at her from every angle. It was a pure white, although her pureness was up for debate in Naruto's mind, and exposed her shoulders. The veil was thrown back behind her head and the train was especially long. It was exquisite. Through with his analysis, he smiled and stood in front of her once again. He lifted her chin up with his fingers so that she looked him in the eye. "What do you think?" "What? What do you think? Do you like the dress?" "Boomies, I love it. It makes me look radiant. Startling. Beautiful. Ino, you could dress in a burlap sack for all I care and you'd still be the most beautiful woman in the world." The chorus of awe rang out through the shop and the pair jerked around to see everyone staring. Naruto put on his best foxy grin and scratched the back of his head. "Well, it's true." Hikaru had woken up at this point and looked at his mother. He cocked his head to one side and gave her a curious glance. "Mama, I think you're missing some of the dress. Your shoulders and the top of your boobs are showing." Nobody was able to stand up straight for 15 minutes after laughing so hard. The shopping for bridesmaids' dresses went just as well. The only problem was when they got to Tsunade. She was going to be performing the nuptials, but Naruto insisted that she have a formal kimono for the occasion. Her bust line was the problem because of her rather large assets. The kimono they had settled on made her squeal with happiness. It was made of silk and hugged her body perfectly. And best of all, I don't have to pay for it. Tsunade thought. She could use it for more than the wedding, and if she played her cards right, maybe she could convince her son to buy her a few more sets of clothes. She liked her normal attire well enough, but it pays to be able to impress dignitaries and such. She adjusted herself one more time and stepped out of the dressing room. The silence she walked in on made her nervous. She raised an eyebrow and swept her eyes over the crowd. "You don't like it? I thought it was a perfect fit." Jiraiya, unfortunately for him, was the first to offer his thoughts. "Damn woman. If I knew you looked that good in a kimono, I would have bought some for you years ago. The way they make those girls of yours pop." He never got to finish that sentence since Naruto bashed him over the head, knocking him out. Goddamn pervert. Gotta love him, but he can ruin anything with that mind of his. Naruto turned back to see all the women with angry looks on their faces and Tsunade with her arms crossed over her chest. He decided that discretion would be the better part of valor and hauled the old pervert out of the store by the collar of his shirt. Taking him home gave Naruto a chance to get outside and away from the wedding frenzy in any event. It only took a few minutes to deposit Jiraiya on his couch and then return to the clothing store to find everyone waiting for him. Ino and her mother had already made all the arrangements for clothing and just needed his signature. Inoichi had nearly had a stroke when he saw the price tag and was still in shock, sitting in a chair in the corner. Naruto glanced at the price at the bottom of the paper and shrugged while walking over to his future father-in-law. He knelt down and whispered in the man's ear. "Don't worry about the price. I got you covered. With what I make it's not even a dent and besides, it's all worth it to see Ino smile." Inoichi grinned and nodded. He thanked whatever gods were above that he had a rich son-in-law. This would definitely make retirement a lot easier. He cracked his neck and stood to face the troop, only to see his daughter fussing over her adopted son. He chuckled and wondered when he'd get to see his own grandchildren. He caught his wife's eyes and they both grinned. "We must have been thinking the same thing," he thought. Time flew by very quickly for the little family and the day finally came where wedding bells would be heard. Ino had invited all her friends and family to come out and it was a large gathering. They had opted to have the ceremony on top of the Hokage mountain where there was plenty of room. The Akimichis were chosen to cater and Naruto was basically foaming at the mouth to try some of their BBQ ramen. It was quite famous throughout Konoha. Everything was perfect and nothing could ruin this day. Naruto sighed and looked back to Tsunade. She smiled at him and gave him a peck on the cheek. She couldn't have been more proud of him that day. She wistfully thought back to the days where she planned to be married to Dan. Thinking of him always left a smile on her face. A sad smile but a smile nonetheless. She looked once more on the men standing on the dais with her. Haruka was the best man and Jiri actually looked dignified if uncomfortable, standing in his formal kimono. Tsunade smirked at this. The old goat should be uncomfortable after foisting his books off on Naruto. Although, the boy does have a knack for the romantic and they're always well written. She admitted with a slight blush. Shaking her head she continued awaiting the bride. Naruto looked down at his young son and smiled. The boy looked so uncomfortable holding those rings and he hated sitting still. Feeling a pat on his shoulder he turned his head and gazed at Haruka. Looking further past he saw a widely grinning Jiraiya. "So brat, you ready for this? You really only want one lady? Look across the aisle there. There's plenty more than just Ino you know." The Toad Senin's remarks got him a sharp elbow in the gut from Haruka and many raised eyebrows, wondering what he could have said to elicit such a reaction from the normally mild schoolteacher. Naruto turned and took in the sight of all his mates' bridesmaids, all dressed in matching kimonos. Hinata and Tenten looked lovely as always. His blushing bride was nowhere to be seen at the moment. Removing his eyes from the lovely ladies in front of him, he surveyed the crowd. Everyone was here it seemed. He smiled at all of his friends until he came to a certain pair. He scowled and his eyes narrowed. He hadn't wanted to invite Sasuke and Sakura, but Tsunade told him it would be in bad taste not to invite the future Hokage, no matter how much everyone may dislike him. He had begrudgingly agreed, but he had hoped they would have the good taste not to show up. So much for that idea. He gritted his teeth when he saw Sasuke with that same self-important smirk he always had, his arm around Sakura's shoulders. She didn't look happy to be there, in fact, she looked downright uncomfortable and hesitant, like she had been drugged there. "Oh well, not my problem," thought Naruto. A sudden whirlwind of sand in front of him caught his attention out of the corner of his eyes and his scowl turned to a wide grin. Gaara and his family appeared right in front of the dais. Walking down the steps Naruto embraced his friend. "I see you were able to make it, my brother. I'm happy that you are here. Ah, and hello to you too, Kaoru. I haven't seen you in months. How are you?" The little girl paid him no mind however and made her way to stand by Hikaru, talking with him animatedly, while the poor boy tried to look for escape. Naruto, Gaara, and Gaara's wife Mitsuri laughed at the boy's predicament. "Ah young love. It appears that I won't have to arrange a political marriage after all Naruto. Kaoru seems quite smitten with your son. She takes after her mother in so many ways. Once she sets her sights on something she simply won't let go until she gets it and even then the boy has no hope. He'll end up just like Shikamaru. Now dear. You know that Temari just has Shikamaru wrapped around her finger. He can't say no or she'll beat him up. Besides he loves her even if he calls her troublesome. Yes but look at how Kaoru acts toward Hikaru. I'm telling you the poor boy doesn't stand a chance. He'll give in I assure you." All three shared a good laugh at that and carried on their chit-chat until a familiar melody began to play. Gaara gave Naruto a reassuring smile and took his family to their seats. He nearly had to pry Kaoru away from Hikaru but assured her that they could play afterward. Naruto looked toward the screen that was set up so that no one could see the bride and his jaw nearly hit the floor. Escorting his little girl down the aisle was Inoichi with the biggest smile on his face. The girl in question, however, was garnering more looks than anyone. Ino looked straight ahead to her mate. She knew she looked good, but the way everyone was staring at her she knew she was drop-dead gorgeous. Even Naruto's tongue was hanging out. She never turned her head, but her eyes were scanning the room. She secretly smiled at the turnout until she swept over a pink head and the dark one beside her. She kept up her smile on the outside, but on the inside she was doing a mental war dance. If only Tsunade hadn't made Naruto invite those two, well, nothing they could do about it now. Finally reaching the dais, she turned to her father who kissed her on her cheek and handed her over to her mate. "You look beautiful, Ino." That was enough to bring tears to her eyes, but they still had to go through with vows. Oh, how she wanted this over with. Tsunade stepped forward and coughed to get the couple's attention. "We are gathered here today to bring together two souls in holy matrimony." Naruto sat back in his chair at the head of the table by his wife and sighed in happiness. The wedding now over, everyone had moved to take in the excellent food of the Akimichis, and man was it ever good. Naruto himself had knocked back over 10 plates and had drunk a few flasks of sake, not that it affected him, regular sake was like drinking water, before Ino drug him onto the dance floor and they had shared their first official dance. Now kicked back and trying to regain his breath beside his mate, he watched everyone else. Jiraiya had somehow convinced Tsunade to dance with him, and surprisingly enough, the old pervert was behaving admirably. He was also an accomplished ballroom dancer and was impressing Tsunade to a new degree, if the blush on her face was any indication. Anko had Iruka as her partner and was trying her best to make him slip and fall into the valley between her breasts. Naruto sighed and wondered when his father figure would ever get the hint that Anko wanted him badly. Perhaps that was where his cluelessness towards women had come from. His eyes settled on his ex-wife and his former best friend, and he gritted his teeth. Ino heard the noise and gave her husband a kiss to settle his nerves. "Don't worry about them, Naruto. We have all of eternity to ourselves. Don't let the past consume you just because he's an asshole." Indeed, Naruto. It is only with great misfortune that he has accomplished as much as he has. "Ara. I didn't hear you sneak up on us." "Well, I wouldn't be much of a ninja if you heard me sneak up now, would I? Take your eyes off the two lovebirds and look at our children." Naruto and Ino looked over to the corner where they could see Kaoru and Hikaru talking with each other. Hikaru apparently was telling a funny story and Kaoru was laughing up a storm. Other children who were Hikaru's friends were gathered around and watching them with great interest and giving their input. The story finished, Kaoru laughed again and leaned in, giving Hikaru a peck on the cheek, turning the poor boy into a tomato. All the children laughed at him and he hid behind Kaoru's back until his color returned. Gaara turned back to the newlyweds and chuckled. "See? I told you that the two were destined to be. Our friendship has spilled over into the new generation, Naruto. And besides, their offspring will be especially strong. Two former Jinchuriki's children should make especially strong children, and I've always wanted to see how strong my grandchildren would be. Add in your strength and we've got shinobi gods." "Gaara, I've already told you, leave them be. If you're right, but don't pressure them. They're young yet. Let nature take its course. We found love, didn't we? Why rush to who will find it without a problem? Hikaru has the looks to get any girl he wants and Kaoru the same with boys. Perhaps, but I've always wanted to see how my retarded grandchildren would look with blonde and pink streaks." Gaara and Mitsuri howled with laughter while Naruto raised his eyebrow and Ino giggled. Ino sighed, wishing the wonderful evening would go on forever. After the wedding they would be going to Suna to enjoy the oases and generally enjoy life for 2 weeks. Hikaru would be staying with Tsunade, much to Tsunade's and his pleasure. She was enjoying the glow of her wedding when she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned up to see Sasuke with that smirk on his face and Sakura behind him with a hangdog look on hers. "May I have this dance, Ino? It seems it may be the last time I get to enjoy your company." She gave Naruto a pleading look, but his gaze held fast. His eyes, however, told another story. He didn't want Sasuke touching his wife and that made her heart flutter, but appearances have to be kept. "Go ahead, Ino. It would be most unseemly if we denied the future Hokage a simple dance. Just hurry back. I wish to dance with you again." Ino nodded and let Sasuke take her hand. She had a bad feeling about this. He whisked her onto the dance floor while Sakura sat down beside Naruto. Sakura sighed on the inside as she took the chair next to Naruto. She had tried to get her courage up to talk to him many times in the past few months, but never seemed to be able to. Finally she had convinced herself that she could do it at his wedding. Naruto was a naturally forgiving person and never held a grudge, even to his enemies. Stealing her resolve, she took a deep breath. "Naruto, I'm sorry." "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "I'm sorry for what I did. I left you and Hikaru all alone and I'm sorry for that. I loved you both, but I wasn't in love with you. I'm sore. You're years too late for that, Sakura. I don't care anymore. I forgave you long ago, but I will never forget the pain you caused. I can never forget what you and Sasuke have done. You broke my heart, fine, I can live with that. Sasuke stole my dream, fine, I can live with that. But you abandoned your son, Sakura, for a heartless bastard, and I will never forget that. Don't think I'm the same person you married, Sakura. That man died the night you left. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, reborn. I'm no one's plaything and my heart and soul belong to Ino now. I am bound to her and she me through more than words and a written contract. We are bound at the soul. I'm happy for you, Naruto. I really am. I just wish that I could undo some of what I've done. Why show remorse now, Sakura? It didn't bother you back then, why should it now? Your inner voice never spoke up to tell you different back then, so no words you say now will put anything right. And as far as Sasuke goes, what the fuck? Why did Ino just slap him? As soon as Sasuke had whisked Ino onto the dance floor, his smirk widened even more. Ino bit her lip and tried not to let him get to her. This was obviously a trick or something. So Ino, how does it feel to be married to a loser and a dope? I wasn't sure your standards had fallen so low that you would just be with anyone. I thought I still held a place in your heart. You lost any place you might have held in my heart when you left us for the pedophile. I hope he wasn't too rough on you. Or did he eventually have to exchange the stick in your ass for a whole tree after he aimed you? Sasuke scowled at her verbal jab. He was losing this war of words already and he wanted to get her good and upset before he handed her back to Naruto. He wanted her to question his humanity and his loyalty. You know the dope still loves Sakura. I bet he'd leave you for her in a heartbeat if he could. And for your information, nothing ever came near my ass. Ino smiled sweetly. She was right. This was a way to try to get her to doubt Naruto and she was now winning the war. No reason to let up now. Well, I'm happy to hear that you're still a virgin there. And as far as Naruto and me, he would never leave me. I'm his queen and he's my king. We're meant to be bound at the soul. You pathetic little worm, would never understand love on that level if you've ever understood love at all. So fuck off. Sasuke ground his teeth together. He wanted this bitch upset and quick. No one talked to him that way. No one. The smirk on his face got sickly big and he growled out his words. Well then, if that's the way you want it, when I become Hokage, the first thing I'm going to do is declare the two of you unfit parents and place Hikaru under my care. After he graduates from the academy, I'll send him on the most dangerous mission I can find and then we'll see how damn smug you are. Ino's reply was a feral growl and a slap that could have disintegrated steel, aimed at his jaw. The festivities immediately came to a halt and Naruto was beside Ino in an instant. What happened? This asshole threatened to take Hikaru away from us when he became Hokage. I merely showed him what I thought of the idea. Tsunade made her way over and tried to establish a form of diplomacy by asking what happened. She was answered with a growl from Naruto that made everyone back up except Ino, who offered her own growl to his. Sasuke simply stood there smirking. Well dope, if you think you can do anything about it, fight me. If you win, I'll leave your family be. But everyone knows you can't defeat me. You never could. You're right, Sasuke. The old Uzumaki Naruto never could have beaten you. He was too kind and forgiving. However, now I have a family to take care of. You are of no consequence anymore. And you have tried to ruin one of the happiest days of my life. I'll never forgive you for that. As for your offer, of course I'll fight you. Tsunade immediately stepped forward. Naruto, think about this. You can't fight the future Hokage, it would look bad. Think of this as my wedding gift to Ino. He has insulted her and I can't let that happen. Honor demands it. Besides, there are plenty of people here who would love to see him taken down a pegger 100. His arrogance knows no bounds. Haddock. I know you're here. Come out of hiding. I saw you in the back. Kakashi stepped forward, his eyes cast toward the ground. It had been years since Naruto had even acknowledged him in public and now the only reason he called on him was because his favorite student had shamed the idiot of Team 7. He was ashamed of himself but he never apologized to anyone, why start now? Looking up he gazed into the taller blonde's eyes. Yes, Naruto. How can I help you? I want you to referee a match between myself and Uchiha Sasuke. Only stop when one of us is incapacitated. Understand? Understood. But are you both going to fight like that? At that Sasuke peeled off his kimono, revealing his battle garb. Naruto narrowed his eyes. You planned this? You planned to ruin our wedding day. You bastard. So what? I'm an Uchiha, we do what we please. Besides, it's not like I'm going to get dirty fighting you. Naruto glared back at Kakashi and cracked his knuckles. He turned to all the people and saw them watching in anticipation. Kiba and Lee, of course, were the ones to break the silence. Pick his ass, Naruto. Show him what it means to be an actual ninja. Naruto put on a foxy grin and kissed his wife on the lips before whispering in her ear. Take Hikaru and stand next to Gaara. This could get messy, but it won't take more than 5 minutes. Naruto, you're not going to hurt him too bad, are you? Nah, I'm just going to break a few bones and make sure he can't have any more children. Ino giggled, nodded, and took Hikaru and herself to stand next to Gaara. She smiled at the Kazukiage, who raised an eyebrow. You might want to put up a sand shield every now and then. He's not going to hold back. Tsunade put her hand on Naruto's shoulder and bade him to lean down. He complied and listened to her. Don't hurt him too bad, Naruto. He deserves it, but the council would have your hide for it. Promise me you won't go all out. I promise to go no more than 4 tails. He isn't worth more than that. Wish me luck, Bachan, and let everyone know that after this the festivities continue. Tsunade nodded and turned to the throng. Alright everyone. This match will be underway soon and then we will continue with the party. Haddock. Start when ready. Kakashi coughed and turned to Sasuke and asked if he was ready. He got a nod. He turned to Naruto and saw him still in his kimono. He raised an eyebrow and asked if Naruto was going to fight in that. His response was a snort and a snap of the fingers. Naruto went up in a blaze of fire, causing Kakashi to raise his arms to fend off the heat. When the flames died, Naruto stood there in a black battle guy and black pants with a blood-red sash. On his back was the kanji for Forsaken Samaritan surrounded by 9 golden foxtails. He wore no shoes, but his feet and ankles were taped, his toes exposed. He wore no hit-8, but had a bandana with the kanji for bad on it. His wrists and hands were taped and his hair was wild, flowing with the breeze. He appeared as he did in his younger days, blood-red eyes and extended fangs and claws. He had decided to stay human for this exhibition for the most part and not flaunt his demonic form. Ino was slightly disappointed that her husband had decided not to show his beauty. It still got her hot and bothered when he did, but decided it was for the best. Everyone was in awe at the change and whispered that perhaps Sasuke had picked a fight he should not have. Naruto merely rounded on Kakashi, who still had a dumbfounded look on his face. Now we may begin. What if Naruto was engaged to Ino Sasuke bashing? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.